I was just listening while I was waiting. The Jungian philosophy, quite interesting. He was talking when him and supposedly Freud were friends, and then Freud wrote about. Well, actually, Jung talks more about the consciousness, the collective and the consciousness, and Freud was talking more about things that were through the sex, through our biology, and that's where they broke away. I value more the Jungian. I think we're more collective, but at the same time, I could see that how biology could, play a major part. Here's one. I think we've talked about it in the past. Jorge, you had mentioned it about religion. You think we would have a different view on religion if people that went to church or had a Bible really spent thousands of hours trying to understand why they go to church and why they read the Bible? Or do you think our issue more times than not, even with state, is because people don't really put that much of an effort to participate, opposed to just vote, go to church? I say that because I'm thinking the same thing with philosophy. A lot of people, I don't think going to university and taking a couple of courses in university and then get a diploma really makes you a craftsman in philosophy. That's my view. Doesn't mean that's the way it is, but
No, that I think that's well, not a problem. I don't know if that's a problem, but remember that when we are born, everything is already here. The way we think, the belief system, and we are conditioned.
Mhm.
We are conditioned. The majority, not all of us, but the majority of the people, we are conditioned to believe in religion, to believe in society, and basically we're not thinking by ourselves. We're being manipulated by social media and etc etc etc. But because somebody program us when we were born, and that programming start with our parents, in our family, relatives, friends, schools, government, religion.
could
And
that be?
that's why I think it's so difficult to tell somebody to change the way they think, and it won't happen that way.
Do you think maybe, Jorge, what you're saying, that could be the program for the ongoing program, and then there's the underground program, which is what we call the hard drive.
Hmm.
One reinforces it. We see the media, but then there's that. It's like me looking at a stop sign. The ongoing program would be I'm looking at the stop sign and seeing the color red and stop, but meanwhile not realizing the rest of my body's following an order, such as I'm putting my pedal to the brake when I come into the stop sign. The unconscious part. And yes, I would lean that way too. I think a lot of, if not all, the programs have already been laid out, and we just fall into it.
Yeah.
It's when you become aware, which probably is another program, that you can question the program.
Yeah, but well, for me it took a lot of time to question that program, because the people I hang around, my family, my friends,
Mhm.
they used to have the same conditioning, so I didn't see it. I didn't see it like the way you're saying it right now. So that it took me more than 40 years to see that something was wrong with with my program. I have to be more aware and conscious, and ask myself, question myself, hey, is this really what I want, or is this something that somebody else wants from me? An example, when the last month, where the majority of people were celebrating some Valentine's days. So you we are bombarded with a lot of commercials. Buy this for your love, for your lover, for your loved one, and show them that you love them, and buy this and buy that. Well, with the quote that do what your heart tells you to do. Uh, are we really deciding to do that, or we're being conditioned and manipulated to buying X X thing? I like clothes, like shoes, like cars, like everything.
I guess, Jorge, I'm going to share something on that. You really can't question a program until you gather the program. So I'll give you an example. Can you question a myth if you've never accumulated a myth? So now this is where discernment comes. You have to practice or accumulate teachings, in this case, religion, state, and then you can do the other part. You can question it, discernment, because what happens is a lot of people will do traditions, but they never question it to either to reinforce it or see how things have changed. There is no right or wrong in that. To tell somebody else that a religion is wrong, they probably, it's like me, and even Jaro, he's a Virgo. Our particular signs, you gather the information, but some people, they like to try to assess it as they're gathering it. And some people that works, but other times you just gather the information. And then eventually some people get so used to gathering, they forget to start figuring out, how do I categorize that information, let alone find a spot for it. So like I was saying, most people forget to question the program, but a lot of people don't even know that they're in a program, let alone they're gathering things from a program. There's what I'm saying, Jorge, there is so many parts to the program. It's not a clear cut black or white. I can't tell my mother, who was raised Roman Catholic, that she's both state and religion, hence Roman Catholic,
Mm-hmm.
let alone tell her all the good and bad. I can't even say it's bad, the different parts within being Roman. It's like when somebody says to me, Dominic, I'm a Muslim. Okay, so you no longer are state. What do you mean? You're not an Islamic Muslim. You're just religion now. You're just a Muslim. Then that's why when you become a Muslim, you can live in America. But if you wanted to be an American but still want to practice Islamic, there's two states that cannot coexist. That'll be like being a Russian Orthodox. You have to drop one of them, or quietly. So now the question part is, you don't question it with the ideal that you think it's right or wrong. That's the ego with judgment, opposed to come in with wisdom where you have discernment. You see it for what it is. It's like when some people, they do come across, or they do the research and find out, well, there's a whole bunch of rulers ruling this world. Yeah, how did you think it was? But the way they talk is, well, it's wrong. Well, then if that's wrong, then we have to question wars. We have to question poverty. And we're allowed to question it, but it shouldn't be questioned from the point of view,
Got it.
and that's been conditioned that it's right or wrong, opposed to just question it for what it is, Hi Grant, just question it for what it is. But a lot of people, including myself in certain areas, I don't come to that awareness. But when I do, I can't reinforce it. In this world, the dogma comes in. I need more than just one of me to what, to justify it. This is the fool's journey. This is a seeker's journey. I'm not really interested in gathering a whole bunch of people to follow me if I choose to read the Quran or the Buddhism teachings. It's the ideal that people start becoming Buddhist. I said the Buddha went on his own. Jesus went on his own. And I'm only guessing when I say that. But we've been so conditioned to think that groups of people, forget about collectiveness. Humanity's never worked collectively, not on the aware part of it. Anyway, I went on.
Good morning, Grant. Welcome to the club.
Welcome, Grant.
Hey, good morning.
How are you, my friend? We're talking about religion. Is that the topic, Dominic?
I don't think so. That's too narrow. If I was going to talk about any dogma, I'd talk about commerce. Commerce is a bigger dogma than state, science, and religion put together because it
Hmm.
involves all of us. But anyway, go ahead. If you want to talk about religion, we can
No, no.
religiously talk about a topic.
All right, I'm down. There we go. Whew. So what were we talking about in terms of religion?
Programs.
Programs?
How we get programmed to follow things, and we get. I'm going to put my 2 cents on that part, Grant. Where then some, if not a lot of us, do the defend and attack mentality. You know, it's kind of like my egg's the best way, so therefore my religion compared to your religion is better. And then you throw in other things, such as if you're a liberal.
Absolutely. I definitely see that in terms of like what you invest in becomes more valuable to you. So anyone in any religion will invest in that religion and in those concepts. And whenever anyone tries to disagree, there's a tendency to like fight back reactively because you've invested so much into this thought or religion. Yeah, is kind of how I see it. So it makes it difficult for people sometimes to come together there where they can just express their views and have other people express their own opinions, which challenges however we see the world. But that's how people grow, and that's what we need in the world.
I guess it depends what's growing, because most of us, we hear the concept of Plato's cave or I the beholder, but forget, have you ever lived outside of your own vessel? That's the only view that we've ever had. But, and when I say but, we don't learn to share our views opposed to arguing our views. Like, I find it interesting when people say they like to debate, where if you become aware that your senses, A, can be misled, and B, I can never see my senses through somebody else. I'll just use you as an example, Grant. Then what am I really doing then? I'm just sharing my views. But that's a struggle, because the whole ideal of having a dogma means that people are misled. Because how can we agree upon things when we realize I don't see it through their senses? The whole agreeing or disagreeing is where the likes and dislikes come in. And I use the word, we want more of that, less of that. We want to do the attachments opposed to the religions. And a lot of that has already been laid out. Like, all of us have learned, in this particular case, a language called English. That's a program. That's the ego. That's the ego's not smart enough to know what is it doing when it's asleep, let alone what's running my body when I'm actually hearing other people. And when I say ego, I'm talking about the self. But again, who's the one that's speaking when I'm saying words like, it's not my body, these aren't my thoughts? A lot of people that are in different kinds of dogma, which is in this case, we're talking about religion, aren't going to probe those things, let alone what is the sound that comes from the English language produce. And then people say, well, I'm not a scientist. Yes, you are. Anytime you have a why, you're a philosopher. Anytime you have the hows, you're a science. That's the whole premise of it. But people put too much value on a degree. I'm a science, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer. I said, you went to school to get 1 degree. But meanwhile, the English language has 5 built in it. Anyway, I went on again, big guys.
I like Grant. Thank you, Grant. The way you put it, when somebody put a lot of value in an idea, and then when somebody don't share that idea, then start the conflict, start defending that point of view, the idea. And I don't know if that's when Dominic was talking about dogma, that means the political belief system is a dogma, the government in itself is a dogma. It's a question. I don't know if you wanna uh, help me to maybe this is my idea of having a dogma or a belief system. Maybe the government, maybe a country, or own family have a dogma. The way they raise the kids. What do you think?
In terms of everyone having a dogma, I mean, I think it's part of human nature. It's inevitable that if you invest, if you live, you're going to invest in things, and whatever you invest in, you become, more invested in. Like someone who has a child is going to invest in that child and they're going to defend it. Someone who lives in a particular way is going to defend that lifestyle because
Hmm.
that's what they know. And like, that's healthy, that's kind of how we do. Yeah, that's, kind of my concept on that.
I like it. I think it's a good concept. It's valid. Dan, good morning. How are you today?
Good morning. I missed you guys. I was going to say how interesting this topic that I walked into because I was thinking of this as a topic. So that's great.
Jairo, why are you so quiet?
Why is Jairo so quiet? Oh,
Your volume a little bit higher, please. Thank you. Oh, now you're sideways. I love it.
hmm.
There you go.
Hmm?
Oh,
Why was I quiet? Well, can you hear me?
we can hear you.
Oh, I'm disconnected from my Bluetooth. I was connected and it wasn't working. Or is it working?
Yeah, you're in. We can hear you.
Oh,
Yeah, you were really quiet earlier though.
A rarity.
yes. Why? Tell me why.
That's a song.
To be or not to be? Let's march forward. Forward. March forward. Today's March 4.
Oh, yeah, it is.
What when I say being, there's a contradiction because with be, you just be. But being, you're changing from one be to another be. So you're being is like a verb. Being. I'm being. I'm being good, but then it might end, then I'll be bad.
You
Being.
can also be a being.
Mhm.
Oh, a human being
Yes.
or a sentient being.
Mhm.
Oh, so sentient beings are busy being. When they stop being, they're dead.
What's the human part then?
What about material being?
Hence the human
Oh,
part.
material beings. Yeah, there must be some material beings. Those are the beings that are not sentient. Maybe. No, wait a minute. Plants. Plants are living beings, but they're not sentient, supposedly, or not too much.
They can, Jaro, they can
It's
be.
a controversy.
Mm.
Well, what's material then? It's always enjoyable when I hear somebody say that they're not materialistic. But meanwhile, I'm thinking, but don't you eat and shelter yourself? Well, yes, I said so. You're using a word out of context. Then, we are material beings. But then again, are we literally the material?
Oh, I'm a material boy
Could
living in
be.
a material boy.
Madonna didn't
Yeah,
really
I guess
stretch
so.
too far on that
You,
one.
you, you
Material
sound like Cindy Lauper.
I think that was Madonna. I think. I forget.
Madonna. Okay.
Yeah, she sung that song. But hey, there's some
like a
validity to that.
Virgo,
Mhm.
touched for the very first time.
Yes, Madonna.
Mhm.
Mm.
But then again, we use words, human being, so be it kind of ideal. Like I get it. A lot of times we're just using one of our apps, our ego, to try to understand things, opposed to what's everything going behind the scenes. What is it? What does it mean to be a human being? Then you hear people talk about the reptilian brain opposed to the animal brain opposed to maybe the spiritual brain. Well, actually, I can't say brain. I would have to lean more towards the concept of what's called a mind, for example. The brain are just the two hemispheres. Are we technically more high-tech walking technology than anything like a cell phone and a car and an airplane could ever be? Because those things aren't really, they move, but are they really alive?
So can someone state the question for me so that I can understand it clearly?
I don't know if there was a question as much as it was a topic, Don.
I think we were talking about religion and then different people's kind of dogmas of how to live, and just kind of the interchange of that. I think that's kind of what I walked into.
Oh,
And if
okay.
that, yeah. Going on like with that topic, if that was the one, I'd like to kind of present an idea and see if you guys agree, disagree, or just kind of interplay with it. So in a lot of religions or philosophies of life, a lot of the goals are to become more pure, more good, do more good than bad. But I see that as counterproductive in a lot of senses, because when one tries to become perfect in like being good to everyone around them, they also can do a lot of harm in terms of enabling people to do bad. So in terms of, I value a balance between good and evil in terms of our effect, because if we're too good, then we will enable people who are bad. If we're too bad, then we'll hurt other people. So just kind of a balance. So what do y'all think? Like in terms of a lot of religions go towards being perfect, but that enables evil in different parts of the world. Any ideas on that?
I think, Judge Grant, the word act comes to mind. Person could either be acting in the moment good, and people could be acting what we call bad at a moment. Person would have to really define what the word good and evil really means. We live in an evil world. Let me change the word. We live in a material world. Again, when I hear somebody, in this case, Grant, you sharing it, you're coming from a premise of likes and dislikes. So there's an attachment and resistance in that perception. So now, is it healthy? I don't think so. Is it limitations? Yes. People are very limiting themselves when they're spending way too much energy trying to perceive themselves as good. Because it's usually, when you bake a cake, it's in the tasting of it to see whether or not, first of all, you have the ability to know how the taste is, if there's something off or good or something on when it comes to the cake. Life is to be experienced. And hopefully when people grasp that, they can experience what's called death. But most of us fear something that you've never experienced or forgot to remember how to experience it. Religion, again, when I hear religion or state, I just think of humans. It's the human factor that's the problem. Same with communism opposed to, democracy and all that. It's human factors. Purest form, in theory, communism would work. Democracy will never work because you have to factor in commerce. So in this particular case, what is really good? So a person would have to break that down for themselves. What is good?
So in terms of good, I'm referring to most religions, their concept of good and evil, whether Christianity or Islam or even atheists try to do more good than bad. And like that's based on their personal perception of the world or their shared paradigm for where they live, where they interact, and trying to uphold the good standards that their society creates can also be counterproductive if they do it too well. Because then the system becomes vulnerable to those to be taken advantage of in a way.
Well, I see it. I think a lot of human beings don't realize they're the frog in the water. So a community cannot be good or productive if they go to somebody else's grocery store or go to somebody else's gas station and use another family's currency. It just makes them very nanny-like state. So that there's no goodness at all in that, meaning that you can't pass that on to the next generation unless you want your kids to be so indebted to another small group of people. A community is strong when everybody knows their parts, and it's pretty balanced, meaning that I'm a farmer of apples, Grant could be a hunters of deers, Don could be gathering seeds, and then we can actually exchange each other in what is, the elite families do this on a constant basis, called bartering. But once you have to exchange your energy for something that's useless, which is a piece of paper, unless you're only using it for this purpose of exchange. So, because I can't carry all my goats to the next community. So on that premise, people would have to first realize, I find it interesting, atheists are the funniest bunch. They're more funnier than religious and state people are, where you couldn't prove if there was a God or not a God. It's like flat earth and round earth. Humans, once again, we're at that point where we're forgetting our own observation skills. And I'm talking about this internally as much as I am externally. So a community, I don't see any communities. I see a whole bunch of cities people that have enslaved themselves and given the delusion that they're independent, where at best they're probably interdependent, meaning that I don't make my own shirts, I don't make the car. You know, I might participate, I might know how to fix a little bit of the car, might bring it to another buddy that's a mechanic, but everything's already been given to us. So how do we sustain what we have when we've gone away from nature, or in this case, we live within nature, but we ignore it? Again, Grant, I'm just breaking it down to a simple thing where if a bunch of professors were here, I said, let's see if you're teachable, because going to university does not make you aware of how a lot of the different parts work, let alone how they interact with each other. Now, I could be
I'd say university is counterproductive at this point,
it could be,
but
it could
that's
be.
my opinion.
Yeah, and that the value that
I
you
have been,
could-
but you know.
Same with getting a craft and realizing.
Oh, they have hands up. Is that hands up?
Oh, sorry, guys. Yeah.
Go ahead, Don. Oh.
Well, I guess what I'm going to say is, basically what was already said. Everything is relative. So what you may think is good may not be considered good to someone else. We're in this, never-ending cycle of realizing what is good and allowing what is good to others to also be good, because there isn't one path. There are a set of rules, I believe, that exist in this realm that, is like a guide to help us to understand how to treat one another. But I feel like when we spend time trying to fix what someone else is doing, we cause another problem. It keeps happening over and over and over again, because the issue, for the most part, unless we're talking about one of these core rules that's built into this realm, the issue is that what you're trying to fix is outside of you instead of what is inside of you. And what needs to be fixed that's outside of you has a plethora of options around it. So then you find yourself fixing this, and then another issue comes up, and then another issue comes up. So what's good and bad, or good and evil, is relative to each person. And I feel like more conversation has to be had about what we are doing to each other and with ourselves in our communities. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I hear the point, but I don't know. I see that some things are always bad. In terms of like one person going out and murdering a lot of people who are, not causing problems to anyone. So I would see that as kind of always bad and goes beyond just certain cultures, but extends to all of them. But then as far as nuanced things that people kind of disagree on in social life, how to live, I definitely see, where that could be Like, why should I try to control someone else's life when, I need to just, control my own and respect them to control their own and whatnot. If that was, that was kind of my comment, I guess.
Yes, that's what I was saying as well. I agree. So, like murder, that's one of the embedded rules in this realm about how you treat one another. But even then, I feel like this realm corrects itself because sometimes we cannot see beyond what's exactly in front of us. We don't see a purpose behind. Sometimes when one thing dies, something blossoms and blooms out of that. So, I've just been experiencing an awareness that's come of things that I really didn't understand or comprehend before. But now I see that if this didn't happen, then we couldn't be here. We couldn't have learned from that. We couldn't have grown from that. So I agree with you, in other words.
Oh, hello. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
I have developed my dogma. Here it is. It comes from, oh, what's it called? Cultural, hmm, uh, I can't find the word. So I see it as we're going through a growing process from being childlike to teenager like to adult mature like. So when we start off as a child, we're being trained what is good and what is not so good. Instead of saying the word evil, not so good as in it could harm others. So, for example, something like taking the toy away from your fellow playmate, then you get scolded, and then you learn that it's not good, and it moves you towards sharing. So sharing is good. So, and all these little things that you pick up along the way, and even animals are doing that too in their tribe. So in the tribe, there is a set of good and not so goods that it learns. So from the one's own perspective, there's good things to do and not so good things to do. And as we master that, we become we are being good, to be or not to be, being good. So but in Buddhism, there is an idea of a natural state of mind where it's in kind of innately good, because it's seen when the mother takes care of the child, uh, the connection is love, and so that connection and it's reflected back from the child. So that that uh, that goodness, that love, is natural. It's inherent, kind of. So that means that you could say we're inherently good, or that we have the potential to be good. And from that they call it compassion, from that wish that others not suffer. So the mother wishes that her child not suffer, so the mother feeds the child. So it's thinking outside the box, thinking outside the self. So then the ultimate good would be to have that motherly feeling towards all beings, sentient beings, because it's hard to be so good to plants. Well, we take advantage of them and plant them. So we're actually benefiting them when we plant them to grow our crops and things like that. Anyway, that's enough for me. You're probably bored. So go ahead, Dominic.
Well, Gerald, as long as you know to go into that silence mode and just rethink all those things from within, because I've shared before, Grant, you haven't been here before, where you hear each other, but you listen from within always. For me, what comes to mind is productive opposed to non-productive. I heard you say earlier, Don, about rules. Are we not manipulating rules? And I'll give you an example. Most of us have forgotten where the sun and the moon have to be to grow our crops. So now we are no longer, well, maybe not as a collective, but quite a few people, we're no longer able to supplement our own foods and all that kind of stuff. So is that changing the rules now, where we were set into a nature and we're here to be hunters, farmers, gatherers, but yet we spend a lot of resources for, and I heard you guys talk earlier about murder. Well, if I have a community and I'm building a gun and a bow and arrow to hunt, but meanwhile you guys are building all these tanks, is that not really pursuing murder? You know, a country that goes to another country and says we're defending our country, that's called invasion. This is where we've become very lazy with our thinking process as humans. And then we do this, we said earlier, Grant, we talk about defend and attack. It's called justifications and excuses. When the American military go to another country, first of all, forget about blaming the individuals, because we're going to start doing that. Then you have to blame the guy that built the gun. Religion and state and wars are the same ideal. Us against them. Well, who is us, first of all? Forget about them. Who is us? And this is where we are manipulating nature's laws. And every so often it reminds us, it will send a body of water over top of land. Those laws are designed for boundaries. But what laws are is not what humans think it is. When you look at the sun, flashlight, but when it's behind a cloud, why do we see still light? We really haven't seen our full potential as a human race. But even that, most of us are driving technology or using technology that most of us on this panel could never create. So who's really doing all of this? Are we saying a group of human beings are over and above us? And are they the same human beings that are making us become citizens in the form of military and police officers or doctors and lawyers? Until we start questioning those things, going on a journey to think one is right or wrong, good or evil kind of ideal, it's kind of an error in a lot of ways. And I only say that because I just observe things. And when I say observe, I'm not just solely observing with my eyes. I'm like, when I read books or I hear people and I'm like, are you really gathering information, or are we just trying to go along with the program and saying things such as, we shouldn't kill each other, but meanwhile, we spent, maybe not us individually here, but as a group, spend a lot of resources building tanks, building submarines. Now, when you're only looking from the eye of the beholder, yeah, you can say that, okay, but yet we choose to live in civilized cities. So we're no longer even living, as Jar was talking about, as a sovereign being. If anything else, we're further from it. So are we devolving opposed to evolving? It's a question, not to say there's one is right and one is wrong. I'm saying it's just a question. Anyway.
How do you raise your hand so I'll know for
reaction? There's a reaction.
Yeah. Oh, reaction.
It's in
all right,
participant.
I see it. Thank
you. Okay. Oh, I've raised my hand, and I remembered the word that I was trying to pull out of my dictionary when I was going cultural appropriation. And so for example, we go to another country and see, oh, I like that, and you buy it and you put it on, but you don't even know what it's for what it might have a religious significance and things like that. So we're famous, I guess, because we're part of that that country, that nation, Great Britain, that empire, that colonialist that took over much of the world, and it went to India and culturally appropriated Indian stuff, and even took some words from India, like pajama, and I don't know. There's so many words that we don't even know that that they come from India, and there's everyday words like karma and things like that. But yes, I have attempted to culturally appropriate Indian philosophy, but I'm not there, or it's difficult. I don't get it yet, or maybe never will, or it's complicated. Lower hand. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I just want to go back to the what Grant was talking about, that we need a
Oh,
balance, because when you are too good, there's some people that gonna take advantage of you, and it's always been in history. It's always been like that since the Egyptians or Sumerians. In the medieval time, there were the kings and the queens, the nobles, the knights and peasants. And when I hear the word religion, for me are a set of rules, but not for everybody, not for the queens, not for the nobles,
mm,
not for the kings, only for the knights and the peasants. That's it, to manipulate and go. And like Jairo said, they can go and fight for you to another country, conquer another country, and try to condition those peoples with a different mindset. But it's been in all history of the world. That was my comment. Thank you.
mm.
That was a good point. Um, uh, a couple comments on what was already said. In terms of, I have a little bit of a darker view of the world, which is okay. It can be beautiful in its own way as well, the way I see things. But in terms of good and evil, I personally recognize, I believe evil exists, in terms of humanity. When we look at, obviously, the world, nature is amoral. Morals don't exist, where like a bear will eat another animal without killing it. So it would just be kind of like, that's horrible, but that's nature. It's following a law. It's just eating. It's not trying to cause pain. Whereas humans and, well, some animals as well, will actually, like if you saw a human do that, you would call it evil, because I believe it is. Like, that would be a evil thing to do, to torture someone and take pleasure from that. So I believe that that is evil. And in terms of the kind of motherly approach to everyone around us, I see that that can also be kind of distorted some ways. If someone is, let's say, 600, 700 pounds and is very unhealthy and kind of addicted to food, and we're a mother to continue to force feed that person and not try to get them help, but like they're giving them what they want in the moment. As far as like that is kind of an enabling effect that one takes advantage of. So like in terms of the balance, where the motherly would want to give, but also give in a healthy way, in terms of good and evil, like the balance between, so that we can, because some people take pleasure in causing pain, and we want to hold those people accountable. so that they do not cause more pain. And so we can kind of live kind of more peace, I guess. But that was my comment. And
I was going to say, aside from what, I think we all believe is, embedded in our society as far as rules of conduct, hurting, killing one another, besides those things, because I believe we all agree on that, I wanted to say that we tend to forget that we are all one. I believe our history shows that at some point we were one society worldwide. We splintered. And we splinter because we tend, the pattern that I see is that we humans tend to look at our differences as opposed to recognizing what we have in common. When we recognize what we have in common, the idea of cultural appropriation disappears. Because in reality, there's nothing new under the sun. There really isn't. What one group of people may use a certain type of fabric or colors for their use doesn't prevent another group of people from using those exact same fabrics and clothing and colors. But because we keep trying to find fault outside of us, what is different outside of us, and pointing at that, and that's not supposed to be like that because that's not the way I see it, and I read it differently, and I'm right and you're wrong, that causes the conflict constantly. There's nothing unifying about saying, well, this belongs to one culture. It doesn't. It doesn't. And what I have recently discovered, there's a fellow that I follow on YouTube who shows very old videos of people playing music, just hanging out, playing music and dancing. And what I have found is that one group doesn't own that style of dancing because 50 years ago, 70 years ago, a group of people was dancing like that. They may have been brown, but all of a sudden we say, okay, that dance style belongs to the brown people, or it belongs to the white people, or the yellow people. It actually doesn't. It belongs to us collectively. And if we put down our guard, our fighting about, I own this, we did this, it doesn't belong to you, just because we have a certain belief about it doesn't mean someone else can't use that same item or have those same ideas and use it for a different purpose. I believe we need to find more ways of connecting on what we have in common as opposed to what we differ. And I find myself doing it on a regular basis. So I am talking to me and preaching to the choir. And then finally, I was going to say that when you were talking about evil and things that happen in our environment and how we can sometimes support it or enable it, I see what you're saying. There is, like Myra was saying, a balance is required. And like Grant was saying, a balance is required. And I think that that's what's happening. I think that's what's happening on this earth, is a balancing is occurring, especially with the pandemic. My view on the pandemic is exactly that it is a staged event so that a rebalancing can occur. So many changes I have witnessed to the population just in my environment. Outside of looking at the mass media, when you don't look at that, you have a different perspective from my point of view. But what I have seen is that there seems to be a balancing, more calm, more peace seems to be permeating throughout the people in my environment. Although even with that happening, there doesn't mean that there is a disappearing of the bad, because I believe the more light you infuse, it sheds more light on the bad. So I do see more people becoming aware of the derelicts in our society and making decisions to handle that situation. But yeah, I hope what I said makes sense. Thanks for letting me share.
As long as my wife used to always say to me, Don, as long as it makes sense to you, you're the one that has to live it. I've heard some words. I know we kind of get sloppy in our wordage. The world is beautiful with or without the couple of parts, which in this case is called humans. Animals are part of the world, nature, bodies of water. Nature, the energy to nature is wild and untamed. That's why it has boundaries over it. So now the animal kingdom would have an issue with humans. Same with the plant kingdoms, if they needed to come down to our level and speak to us. When we have us as a species becoming more domestic, we're going away from the tribes that used to work, interact, because they were wild and untamed. Now, can it be constructive and destructive? Yes. A bear eating another animal is doing the ecosystem. Whoever created is more high-tech than humans will ever be. We make destructive things. And when we make constructive things, it's based on our happiness. So now as we become more domestic, we're getting further away of being wild. And what we do is, like in the toy store, I need some more space. So now we start taking habitats away from nature itself, but we rely on nature. So now when people say the world's getting better, first of all, you have to see it from the bigger picture, knowing that you're just one small part. The human race is extincting a lot of things. Even some of our languages that human race uses is being extinct. But only because we become domestic. That's why people adapt quicker to a dog than a cat, because a cat keeps its wildness in it. A dog has become so domestic. That's the only way we can understand it. And most of us are chasing our comforts and our convenience. We're not chasing our needs so that the next generation says, thank you for giving me the skills. No, you've taught me to be a robot. This is why whoever they are creating things like AI, because it's more efficient than humans, because humans are mostly underdeveloped emotionally. And when I say emotion, energy and motion, our thinking, our senses. Sure, we can justify each individual person when you're talking for yourself, but when you look at the rest of the species called humans on this plane called Earth, there's such a disparity. You can't have free trade with other countries when one country holds it over everybody else. You have to use our currency. And when that happens, they turn around and say, okay, we'll devalue your currency. It's a game that humans play among themselves. And once they start doing the revolution from within, they're going to see all the foolish shit that they've been for a long time. History does repeat itself. Arrogance repeats itself. Now, sure, I can look at nature and say, it is beautiful. Lightning comes from the top as much as it comes from the bottom. There is forest fires. That's the constructive and destructive. But humans want to have this bubble around them, and they think they can't throw a glass out of it. You would have to be almost arrogant to not entertain the ideal that if a person wants to make somebody feel bad, is the same person that wants to make you feel happy. When did it become our responsibility to make anybody happy, let alone sad? Could be a side effect. But most people will say, yeah, but I only care about my family. I said, shouldn't the elites do the same thing? Do you see the hypocrisy? We're one human race with, yes, many different shades of colors, many genders. Until people get to that awareness, forget about change. Awareness is by far more superior than that stuff. And the dogmas aren't for that. Dogmas, like going to school, is about better consumers and better workers. Now, if you're going to educate yourself, bring it out, grasp it. When you say things such as the world, look at it. The human race is very small. Doesn't matter if it's 7 billion of us, we're very small compared to the dust on the ground, let alone the bodies of water. Funny that we call the whole earth. But if we were sea dwellers, would we call it the sea? Probably. This is the shit that people have to get in with themselves. Now, the way I say it, sure, it can be changed. If it makes sense for you, and even that, you should question your senses. Anyway, I went on.
Jorge,
Yes, I'm here. You guys were talking about good and evil, and that reminded me a quote from Nietzsche, that he thought that the religious concept of good and evil is a slave mentality to the masses. I love that. I just wanted to, that reminded me to that, but yeah, that's my comment.
You said the concept of good and evil is a slave mentality to the masses.
Yeah, of the masses,
Ah,
of the
that's a
masses.
good quote. Oh, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Huh.
I like it. I agree. Because like I was saying earlier, everything is relative. So once you embed yourself in that it's a dualistic construct anyway, and it constantly keeps you looking outside of yourself.
On the comment, I don't know, I really liked it because like if the government decides what is good then and what is evil, then they have absolute control over everything. Same with any dogma. If they decide this good, this bad, then that determines what people will do, what society will do. And then the more they do it, the more they will defend what they're doing and, you know, et cetera. So like that, I don't know, I thought that was a really good quote that Jorge brought up.
And while we are stuck in that loop of looking at what is good versus what is evil, we are not becoming more aware of who we are and our own abilities, our strength. We are creators. So notice that it seems like in our societies that only a few are allowed to create, but that is a mind construct. That is a belief system. We all can create, but we have the limitation that's been put onto us by those that rule over us on this plane, or at least believe they rule over us, and we tend to have believed it as well. But that is what I see that we are waking up from. We are waking up from the illusion that they control us, because what they control us with is fear, the force of fear. And also they control us with a lack of knowledge.
Dawn, as we're using their technology, we're using their cars, we're using their money, since you become an accountant or I become an electrician and all that. That is control. But the thing is, how would it look any other ways? How many people here could actually make their own system? And how many people would actually buy my product or somebody else's product? Like I said, we've become so domestic that you don't even know what it is to be wild and untamed.
Dominic, but at the end, I have the control to use technology in a good way. For example, I start watching news. I don't see regular television because all the commercial they send they always try to sell something to you.
Okay, Jorge.
And in this meeting, we are using technology for something good. So it's up to me, it's up to everybody to the way you think, the way you were raised. Like we talked before, for somebody maybe it's bad, technology is bad, but for me it's good. Now I like educating myself. I can get education in any area that I want. So that's what I love technology.
Well,
But
okay,
that's for me. I cannot talk for somebody else.
you're talking, because you brought in the word bad. I'm talking from awareness. I'll give you an example. You're actually sitting within an advanced technology called your vessel. Now, the ideal of control is so delusional. When you go to sleep, who runs your body? When you've been hearing us for about an hour, who's the one that's been running your liquids in your body, which is blood and water? It's not you. Now, people become attached to the body, but never observe you're not the body, let alone the thoughts that you have. You get to use them. It's like me. I can use the car. Doesn't mean, somebody can say, well, Dominic, but you have the steering wheel. I said, to a certain point, I can have the illusion that I'm in control. This is where most people don't realize you're reacting opposed to having responsibility. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I get people talking about good and evil. If they understood what the energy of good really is and what the energy of evil is, they realize there's no good and bad in it. It's just spiritual and material. You live in an
Hmm.
evil world, a material world. Now,
E-
people could go ahead. Sorry, Jared. Go.
No, it's okay that you said that. When we were talking, when you were saying uh, technology, we're talking about something like television, a cellular phone, or a computer.
That's a different version of technology.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, but when you try to relate a human being with we have this innate natural capacity to do things when you're sleeping, your body is working, trying to develop a temperature or create a temperature so you cannot go up or down the temperature, your heart rate, everything. That's natural. It doesn't have, well, if you want to call it technology, that's fine, that's okay, but it's not for me, it's not the same thing that
They're
technologies
not,
that we're
Jorge.
using today.
They're not, but you're interfacing them. This is the whole idea. You don't see air, but you're in it. So you're like the goldfish within water. Air is actually encompasses everything. But the thing is, what is air? We give it a name, such as prana or chi. Same with consciousness. So now in this particular case, I'm telling you, you're in a technology that's more advanced than anything that we've ever created outside. Now, person can say, yeah, but it's my body. I said, when did you ever think you own anything? Because if you own it, then you should explain yourself. How does your hair grow? When does it grow? When you go to sleep, who's functioning in your body? Why is it when people go into a coma, their body can still function with or without the ongoing program? These are questions. But if you're already thinking you're looking for an answer, you're going to have to wait for science to fucking dribble it to you. Even when I talk about the mind, I'm not talking about the brain. I'm talking about the mind. It's totally two different things going on, because within your vessels, you have many receivers. This is why some people are intuitive, insightful, information, eye of the beholder, point of view. That's all within you. You don't leave that vessel unless you're the very few beings that can do astral traveling. Just because you look across the room with one of your senses doesn't mean you're there. And until people realize that, the technology that's in front of you is a lesser technology. Not to denounce it, but it's just a lesser technology, because this laptop that I'm looking at cannot eat unless you're going to use the metaphor. It's consuming electricity and Wi-Fi. That opens up another can of worms. What happens when you do introduce things like radio frequency, Wi-Fi, and electricity to the human race? It plays havoc on it. It's called disease. Not just what you put in your mouth that affects that to you. People still use the word cause and effect. You're living in the effect and side effect realm because you don't see where language comes from when you speak onto an object.
I get it. But
You
at the
do,
same
but
at the same time, you're saying that but you're still using technology.
I'm using a word. It's no different. Somebody talk about the word God, alien, reptilians. You can use whatever word as long as it makes. That's why I told Don.
Even if it's not in words for material thing, you're using microwave, you're using your car to go to work, your cell phone, you're using it.
I'm not.
Why
I
are
never
you
once
using
said.
it?
I know, but I never once said it's bad. I'm talking about awareness. Awareness has nothing to be about right or wrong. If anything else, I've told Jara before, change the word wrong to left, right and left. It's a direction. Take your directions. People only entertain one or two ideals at once. Entertain many ideals if that's the kind of person you are. Like, I can't run like Usain Bolt, but I can still run, but I can appreciate his craft. There's people out there that are so wise, they're not concerned about dogmas. No different, there's other people there, they're concerned about dogmas. So if you're concerned about it and you know where you stand, then look at it. Does it bring you some, and I think even Grant brought it at the very beginning, opposed to belief system, does it bring value to oneself? Now, if you want to convince a whole bunch of other people to follow you, then it really can't be true value if you need more than just one of yous, unless they do it, well, some people use the word freely. You know, the mind has many variations, the will has many variations, and free is just one of them. You could be open-minded, closed-minded, narrow-minded, shallow-minded, receptive-minded. You could use all kinds of words. We're living in a program that has so many subdirectories. Now, some people say, Don, that's overwhelming. Well, then step aside, because if we waited for the few people to say, well, we're going to wait till the masses understand how cars work before we make a car, we would be waiting a lot of generations. We're using a concept called electricity, which is a byproduct of nuclear energy. That's why we have nuclear wars, because they understand how nuclear works. Tesla was only tapping on it ever so lightly. But until you become aware of that, What we're doing is we're dribbling on information that a person can do from within. That's why we have concept of prayer, inquiry, peace, silence, meditate, listen from within. Now, if we're waiting for outside, then you have to ask yourself that question: have I ever lived outside of my vessel? That's why we use the word eye of the beholder, point of view, Plato's cave, because you never leave that vessel. Now, you could leave it, let's say hypothetically, because I've never experienced death, so I can't really fear it, but I can fear things that I am aware of: pain, suffering, comforts, and attachments. Anyway, I went on again, guys.
Do you have another question, Grant or Dan?
No real question. Well, maybe. Well, you don't have to share, I guess, but like, everyone here, like, do you guys believe in a good and evil, or just kind of a more relative, or like a mixture of those?
I tend to believe that there is evil, but the reality is that it's a word. So what I believe is evil may not be considered evil to you. But I believe some of the rules, we call them rules, embedded in this world are pointing at what not to do. And I once heard, it was through Monatic Media, one of their videos, where I heard them saying what we consider evil is that which distracts the soul from its ultimate path, its ultimate goal. Because I don't believe that, we're here on this earth to be in this body just to have a bunch of fun and, live a human life. I believe that actually we are here to develop our souls, to grow our souls. So that's one version of what evil is. So that's why no matter which way we look at it, it's a word, which then the word is relative to each person. But I think what you're pointing at is, do we believe that there is a force that permeates what we call evil, malice, dissension, corruption in our environment? And yes, I believe that there is a force that does that. It's an energy, and it permeates through us humans and cause us to behave in certain ways that we consider evil.
Okay. Thank you.
What about you, Jairo? Oh, thank you. I believe that there's no such thing as evil.
Cool.
It's all in the mind. Because what? For example, some evil character like Hitler or Stalin or Mao or whatever did to their own people and to people around them, then the people outside of their mindset would classify their actions as evil and so forth. So, but then if you got into their mind, then they would logically say, I did this for the benefit of my people, to make my nation, our people, grand. And so, and that's what my people wanted. They wanted a leader to take them forward. Manifest destiny is the destiny of our people to make them grand. But then they got into a war and they overextended themselves and they were defeated. And so the people that the other nations around them, to keep that nation from doing it again, they said, well, that what they did was evil and that leader was evil, and denounce anyone that's going to start to bring back those ideas of nationalism, of this or that. So so that evil is in the eye of the beholder, or in the mind of the beholder. So for when we look from a distance at actions of people, and it's, oh, they're doing something evil, so they're evil for us. But then if you look from their point of view, they're thinking we're doing something good for us. So see, evil does not exist. It's all in the mind. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, like I see your point. Like I don't agree myself, but I respect your opinion. In terms of good intentions can cause evil. Where someone tries to help someone, or someone tries to do someone like a country invading another to feed its own people, where they're trying to have a good intention, but they're doing evil. But I also believe that people can do evil just for the pleasure they receive from doing evil. And I would call that, just evil, where there is no good intention besides the distorted good intention they have for themselves in the pain and suffering they cause in others, that gives certain people, like sadism, we call that. They enjoy torturing others. So I would call that evil, but that, I guess, would have its place in a warring society, where a warrior who enjoys inflicting pain would be a successful warrior. But in terms of our society today, and like even back then, I would still call that evil if they continue to enjoy torturing others. So yeah, like I definitely believe in the concept of evil, and that it is relative to some extent. But then in some societies or some circumstances, evil will always be evil, regardless of the culture or circumstances, etc.
But still, that evil would not be considered evil by the evil maker. It would just be considered a nice pleasure. Well, if you could take him to therapy and have him talk about it, and then maybe convince him what you did was evil. Okay, so how do I overcome my evil tendencies, my shadow? So we use Jungian psychology, and maybe you transform that evil tendency into something positive for society. So that because you don't want to suppress that energy, you want to transform it for the benefit of all. Maybe he becomes a policeman and beats up the criminals.
I would, to a certain extent, reform is good, but I would disagree with the overall as well. Because like if there's a serial killer who enjoys, racking up victims and doing horrible things, I'm of the opinion that you should just shoot them in the head, and then they're gone, and like, because I believe people can become evil and enjoy evil, and
But
once they're doing all of that
you
evil,
cannot conquer evil with evil. You cannot.
yeah, you conquer with a bullet. Yeah.
You can.
Yeah.
Only love can conquer evil. So how do you conquer it? There's a story.
No, you don't give the serial killer a hug. That's not,
There's a story about that from ancient India, where the there was this serial killer that had a necklace with I guess the fingers of each of the people he had killed, and he was trying to uh get a necklace of 100 people, or maybe it's 1,000, and it's all the thumbs, like each, like it's like a bead instead of
Yeah.
using bead.
It's good to have goals. Yeah.
He used thumbs of the people he had killed, and he was up to either 99 or 999. He had one more to complete his necklace, and that's why he was called Aguli Mala. Oh, Mala means like necklace for prayers, like a prayer bead, and Aguli, I guess, means 100 thumbs or something like that, or 1,000 thumbs. It's a necklace made out of thumbs, and so he was up to one more, and he would complete his necklace, but he encountered this preacher that was all about love, and so he went into the forest to meet up with this serial killer, and but they told him, no, don't go in there, that's where he lives, and all that. They warned him, and so they met to face, and then so instead of showing fear, he showed tremendous love, and that disarmed the serial killer, and the serial killer became a disciple of him, and he became he woke up. That's a story from Buddhism, that the teach Buddha transformed Aguli Mala into a good person. I guess that was the rehab or the reform back then. Through
Happy
Buddhist
story.
psychology, he was able to transform his pain and suffering and his desire to kill into something good somehow. Could that be possible?
Yeah, I'd say sometimes, but not all the time,
Or
in my opinion. Yeah. But
maybe
Dominic,
we emphasize funding the police and packing them with more arms to beat the bad guy, versus maybe the alternative would be, instead of arming more police, maybe arming more psychotherapists and going out into the jungles and transforming the criminals into good people through psychology or through some kind of rehab reform. That maybe that takes a lot more money or more patience. I don't know. Yeah, I guess you have to maybe capture them maybe first. Sometimes, I don't know, put them in
but
jail.
a lot of therapists might get hurt along the process. But Dominic's raising his hand.
I guess I'm going to tell myself a Disney story out loud. Father brings his child or a bunch of children to watch what he's already been conditioned to know, what's kind and what's unkind, to get their kids to look at a bunch of people that some are acting kind to one and the other one is acting very unkind to another. As a child's hearing them, and then of course reading their thoughts, one is trying to change the other. The father sits there quietly and watches the child assess all of this. And then of course he asks the child, what do you think is going on? He goes, well, one's trying to force their will onto another. Well, do you think one's right and one's wrong? I don't know. So how are you going to learn, son? I think I just need to be it, Dad. Exactly. So now in this particular case, when somebody perceives something as positive or negative, good or bad, good or evil, whatever word you want to use, a counter magnetic force to it, would it be appropriate if you're taking a train and automatically you want to change direction? There's going to be a lot of effects. So now when a person's trying to change or dictate that somebody's doing good behavior and the other behavior is what they perceive as wrong, and either A, I need to change them. No, you can change yourself, hence the word repent. Change your direction. But you need to experience those things. Because last time I remember, either A, none of us are hypocrites, or we're all hypocrites. And when I say hypocrisy, if a guy's a crook, he talks like a crook and he acts like a crook, he's not a hypocrite. It's the guy that actually talks that he's a good guy, but meanwhile, he's cheating his taxes and all that. I said, you're being your own hypocrite, but who am I to call you out? But this is what we do. We call people out. Oh, that's good behavior. Well, that's bad behavior. Well, you're condemning them now. Are they not acting? That's why we have many words with the word act in it. We are living in the karma realm. Now, whether or not people value those words, then go inwards. Self-explore. You've been handicapped. You only know a couple of languages. And colors and numbers are languages too. So it's not just a couple of languages. So once again, I've heard you say a couple of times, Grant, I have my perception of the word good and evil, the spiritual, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, the awareness tree of spiritual material. Where do you see the words you explain onto the object? Well, I don't see it. Spiritual. Where do you receive the thought when you look at an object and you call it a wall? That's spiritual. Now, what I've been hearing most people talk about is their likes and dislikes. I've even heard out of your mouth, Grant. I agree or disagree. When did you ever see it through somebody else's senses? This is like when I tell people, I don't care how old they are, who taught you how to breathe? And it wasn't your parents, it wasn't your community. We're still at a very shallow view on awareness. Now, am I full of shit? Probably. Do I give a damn? I hope so. For me. But I'm not going to write a book on it, let alone even when I do this, because Charles chooses that he wants to record it. Yes, this could be prosperity. Other people might watch this and they might have a moment of insight. But once again, what are we really saying when we say I agree or disagree? We're saying I like and I don't like. So we're playing the wonderful world of attachments and resistance. Now, can I tell somebody else, is it wrong to kill an animal? Don't know. You got to give me a lot of the parts. People call it the devil's in the details. Well, if the devil's in the details, I want a part of that, because how do things come to be? How did we come to be? That's philosophizing. I'm just asking questions, not to say anybody here has an answer. And even if you did, it can only resonate with me when I come to my awareness of it. So now, is the world evil? Well, if I use the word evil as material, and some people want to use it as destructive, yes. Is the world good? Well, if I'm using the word spiritual and I'm describing everything, yes. But if some people are implying that it's constructive, yes.
And can the spiritual transform the material?
We experience more, Jaro, in the spiritual than we do in the material. I'll give you an example. You look at an object, let's say a fridge. The word I called fridge is called spiritual. You don't see the word, but I can call it a white fridge within a dining room, a white fridge called KitchenAid. Every word that I use is an experience. And within each word is sounds and frequencies. Then we can use numbers to gauge it, or we can use letters to write things. Those are all, we weren't born to write and read. We were conditioned to write and read. Now, what we didn't learn vocabulary, but we did learn vocals. We had sound. So now until people become aware of that kind of stuff, how are we going to work with that? Because what's really been going on is the conditioning of the schooling system to be better slaves. Now, when I say slaves, even a master is a slave, because they're both conditions. And what is it for? For commerce. When people tell me, Dominic, I need to make money, I said, listen to your language. Are you making money or are you earning money? Because that's sloppy wordage. We are using an English language. It's a meaningful language. It's not like Greek or Sanskrit or Hebrew. But anyway, I went on again.
But anyway, you went on again.
This is really good conversation. I have another question talking about, again, good and evil. Can we call a lion evil because he kills a deer or another animal of the same race? Can we call him evil?
I wouldn't in terms of like nature. They're just doing what they're doing.
So we
also,
are
I like lions.
I like him too. So we are not from nature?
In terms of, we have options. Lions don't. So we have options to kill each other or not to kill each other, whereas lions don't really have those options.
That
as,
we don't either. We kill animals because we have to also to eat.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. But we have the option to kill each other or not, unless we're at war, in which case we don't.
Well,
And then we would
and
go on.
lions don't generally kill each other. They kill animals for food.
No, they also kill each other. They wipe each other out, invade territory, kill the young, and etc.
Or maybe they fight each other for, like, if it's for another tribe or another pride, they might. Or maybe the bigger lion might beat up the smaller lions to make him the king of the pride or the group.
Jar, what we're seeing more times than not, we're seeing the effects in the material. There's other, and people have tapped into it. Animals see auras. So a lion will actually see the weaker energy within a pack of deers. That's why the mother has to step in between her baby because her aura hasn't developed. So it'll see a stronger aura, the lioness, not lions, because the lioness do all the hunting. So, and of course, there is value to the blood that's inside the food. So when you see an animal tearing down another animal, it's like dogs, when they taste the human blood, you got to put it down because there's value in memory cells and what we call blood. So now we're feeders. We feed off of everything energetically and also physically. Unfortunately, most people have forgot your blood type plays a major part in your culture and your gender and when you actually have a diet. So now when somebody looks at, as you were asking Jorge, is it evil a lion to eat it? We're all bottom feeders to a certain point, because if we're going to start saying, well, is it right or wrong to pick an apple? Well, it depends how you do it and what season you do it, because for a tree, it needs to reproduce. And whether or not humans feed off of it or animals feed off of it or throws it down to the ground and it gets absorbed and goes back into seed, some of them does. There's a system that's going on. Humans just never learned that system. What we do is we create things that just stick out, like metal objects, buildings, bridges. We tear into nature opposed to work with nature. So now, and animals, they do reproduce and unproduce. You can get down to the molecules of these animals, the bacteria. If that's too far to go back, we'll look at ants. We can observe all of that stuff, both internally and externally. But it's the human part that says, well, I'm going to drop in here and act like an alien and then say, well, I think that's wrong. I said, okay, so what have you created? You create rubber tires. How does that help nature? And for future generation, let alone if we even come back over and over, if you value the concept, because I don't value the concept of belief systems, but hey, if you do, all the power to you. But at least question it for yourself, not for others. Why do we have the variations of trees? How do they align themselves? Why do we have different bodies of waters in the world? Now, for somebody, well, Dominic, that's too much of us. Well, then get that vocabulary word out of your mouth about the world. Then just talk about its parts. Why is one gender or one culture a light skin and another's a more dark skin? And then you look at even think about our hemispheres. Different cultures write and read differently in different parts of hemispheres. They're not ever observed that. But anyway, I see Grant's hand up. Sorry, Grant.
Yeah, I think Jorge brought up a really good question, like, are lions evil in terms of they eat other animals? And we do have a choice not to eat other animals, and yet we do. I do myself. So does that make me evil in terms of killing animals when it's not necessary? So that's definitely one of those where it's relative. Yeah, so that was a great question. So I still see it as far as how humans treat each other, as far as having a functional society, where there's laws in place where we cannot kill each other whenever we feel like it, because some people are more prone to doing that than others, just depending on a number of factors. But yeah, but it was a good question in terms of like because one person might see me eating some chicken breast yesterday as doing something horrifically evil. And like, parts of their views are probably valid. But like I still do it because I like chicken. And like that's that's a fair point on that one.
Dan, you had your hand raised, so I know you have an opinion on this.
Maybe she went to get some chicken to eat,
Probably. Chicken is
Or-
very good.
or maybe she went to feed the dog.
Why do I have to get chicken? I was listening. Yes, I went to give my dog a treat.
Made out of chicken.
Yes. What was
Which
the
you-
question?
Yes. You had your hand up earlier, but you
Oh,
probably,
yes, I had my hand up, but the discussion worked it out for me.
wow. They anticipated and gave you an answer.
Yes, it did. Good discussion.
Mm.
So I guess we are really philosophizing about the existence of evil on this planet, and I think we agree that it exists,
I
but
disagree.
you don't believe it exists.
I don't believe it exists.
Ah,
Yes.
Yeah,
And
I think disagreements are beautiful because then
And-
we can see different perspectives. Yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
And by seeing that it doesn't exist, it goes poof, it's gone. So I live in a world where there's no evil. Isn't that wonderful?
Yes, actually, I love it because it's just a word. It's really just a word. What one describes as evil may not be evil to another. And I really do believe that we have to come to an understanding that we create what we see. We create the evil behavior that we see. And it just goes much deeper. So my words are not even sufficient to say what I'm trying to say because it's going to just create conflict. But I see your perspective.
But it
I
could
agree
serve
with
a,
you. and
but it
I
could
as
serve a
well.
purpose. Like when you're living in the mountains, in the highest mountains, the Himalayas, and there's snow covered, and then you're climbing the mountains or going through the mountains, and there's slopes here and there, and they're covered with snow, and then you have to be kind of quiet because an avalanche could happen. And then when it happens, then who do you blame it on? You blame it on an evil spirit. So you have to appease the evil spirit. You have to chant prayers to the evil spirit to appease the evil spirit and say, "Oh, evil spirit of this mountain, you are wonderful. Please do not cause an avalanche and kill me," and things like that. So you impute evilness on a spirit and you label it and you create prayers and rituals to appease it so that it won't cause an avalanche and kill your family. Or you could go into black magic and have mantras that you say, and it causes the avalanche to destroy your enemies. That's what the saints from Tibet did. He ended up being called Milarepa, and so what happened was he became enlightened in one lifetime, and that's a big deal for Tibetans because they imagine, or to Buddhists, that it takes many lifetimes to become enlightened, to become a Buddha, where you have tremendous powers for good. But he did evil because his mother told him, go learn black magic and cause these people that took our land from us and harmed them with your black magic. So he went and learned black magic from this master black magician. And so he went and did his magical words, and the avalanche destroyed them. And so, yay, he's the hero to his mother. But then he saw, oh, the karma that I caused by killing these 30 some people. Uh-oh, what have I done? And so he regretted it. And so he went to this guru to learn how to overcome his karma. So he made him build things and then destroy them, build things. Maybe it's a good workout, but he burned that karma, and then he was free of that karma. And then he meditated and became a Buddha, enlightened person, a saint for Tibetan Buddhists. So he's a hero for Tibetan Buddhists, because then with that example, you can become a Buddha in one lifetime. But it takes a lot of work. You got to find the right guru. Thank you very much.
Can you repeat that, Jairo? No, I'm not just kidding. Yeah, going back to the same example of good and evil. Sometimes we participate conscious or unconsciously. I wanna take the example of Grant eating a chicken. A chicken has the span life of a chicken, or the life it should be around 7 years, 6 or 7 years. But
Wow.
what happens? That chicken that you buy in the market, they force to grow this chicken in 3 months, and they kill it. Another one, and you eat it a nice piece of chicken breast or wing or whatever. But at the end, we are participating consciously or unconsciously. We don't see it like that. Are we evil persons, or we are just blind to that action that we're forcing grow even chicken or cows or any product that we find in a market? That is a question. I don't know if you can help me to explain or try to philosophize a little bit.
Mm.
I'll chime in. So like, I could spend twice as much to buy chicken that is like free range, has a good life, you know, they read at bedtime stories and all that stuff. But I don't. You know, I buy the chicken that is cheaper. And you know, for me, I'm okay with that. I don't think about, you know, obviously the chicken has a horrible life.
You're a chicken serial killer.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am, and it's delicious. Just worry about which type of sauce. So yeah. Like in terms of that, I willingly choose to ignore suffering of an animal.
So
Yeah,
there's no
yeah.
evil in your mind. But for people from PETA who are against harming animals, they see you as evil. You're evil, evil, evil.
Well, I do have one thought. So like, I'm okay, like bad things happen. I am a participant in that by eating the chicken. If I went and found the chicken and then tortured it just for fun, I think that would be evil. Yeah,
Yes, I get
or
it.
at least one would be worse. If that makes sense.
You're not getting joy or thrill in killing. So your karma is not as bad as the person that's assigned to kill I guess the murderer.
Well, I'd be fine being the murderer as well, but not just, you know, taking, you know,
karma is
doing
not so bad.
Yeah.
And it's distributed karma. It's distributed across many people, so the karma is not so.
Sure. So like,
but maybe if everybody had to grow their own chicken and kill it themselves, then they get tired of it. It's too much work. I'll just go eat some vegetables, grow some vegetables.
well, vegetables are work as well. But yeah, I don't apply my morality, I guess, to those situations. I do apply it in terms of a functional society where I don't kill other people or enjoy causing them pain. But I do have more on good and evil I want to get to later, but anyone else want to talk about the question Jorge posed?
Hmm, it's complicated.
Well, I hope I understand what you're saying, Jorge. And in response, I will say that I was recently watching a channel on Facebook that shows about people who are living off the land on their own. They've either always been that way for their group of people, or they have disconnected from society. And you can tell from the video that they're not living far away from civilization, so to speak. But they basically, they create their own environment. Everything that they have, they make or build for the most part. You can see that they use some tools that they may have bought from a store, but they hunt and kill and make their own food from what they scavenge. And I noticed the comments from people who was witnessing, one of the men finding an animal and butchering it, and they're showing us this is how it's done. And the responses shocked me. We've become so disconnected from how our food is brought to us, to the point where so many comments was saying actually the word evil, pure evil. They were saying disgusting, the green vomiting face, and just lots and lots of attacks at these people who were just getting some food. And I just find it so odd that that is our perspective. And it's not, it's purveying, it's going forward. More and more people are coming up with this, oh, we're hurting these animals, and how dare you do this? And I just, I have some confusion. Why is it evil? I don't understand that.
It's in their minds. But also in Tibet, it's a Buddhist country, but it's so high up in elevation that you can't grow vegetables. So there's grass and things like that. And so they have cows or cattle. They're called yaks and something else. D's. The female yak is called a D or something like that. And so they herd them, and then they get all kinds of products from them, including their meat. But before they kill them, they say prayers and things like that to the animal. Maybe they wait until it's pretty mature. It's all natural, organic, and they try not. I guess I don't know how they kill them. I haven't seen any videos of them killing them, or they get like if you're a Buddhist monk or a nun living in a monastery, then they get their meat. But they have Muslim Tibetans, because Muslims it's okay for them to kill, so they get them to kill their animals. but they mostly have to eat meat because they have little vegetables. Maybe they can grow barley and things like that. Yeah, they grow barley and certain grains that can be grown at high elevations. But it's funny that they get Muslims to kill their meat, so that way they don't accrue karma, but the Muslim does. Muslim
Good
butcher.
thinking. One thought is that I guess for a lot of the people, like the kids, like college kids or high school kids who are eating the hamburgers, but saying how evil it is to, butcher animals, like, the hypocritical, like eating hamburgers, saying that's evil. It's part of like our society's become so removed from the cruelty of the world that when they see reality, they try to reject it. Because they want to see themselves as not harming anything, as good always. And they just think that hamburgers come from the hamburger factory, and then chicken comes from the chicken factory, and it just grows off trees and everything's fine. They don't have to look at it, you know? But like when they see a video of someone instructing, here's how to properly butcher an animal for you and your family, they're like, you know, it's evil because it highlights what they haven't had to look at.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That happens for death too. We
Yeah,
we
yeah.
hide death so much. Well, in video games, you see a lot of shooting, but and you earn it, and a little bit of blood here and there, but
Sure.
you don't see the after effects of death. You don't sit there and watch the person dying, see what it's like to see someone dying.
Yeah. I was an EMT for a while, so I've been kind of what's that word? Forget what it is. Anyways, normalized to that. But yeah, it is different than video games. Much different, especially when there's lots of suffering involved. You don't like that. But yeah, it is a good experience to like help people in those critical times. But there's a lot involved, you know.
Mm. Yeah.
But another thing on good and evil, if I could bring it up, it was karma. I have my view of that, but that might take a while. So my concept is I believe it's important to understand good and evil, or what society has dictated as good behavior, bad behavior. But for to avoid bad behaviors, but also to make use of bad behaviors,
Mm.
or to make use of evil, to make use of that in the appropriate situation, or to so in terms of violence, if a adult is trying to kill a child, I could attack the adult to protect the weaker person. Or on a lower basis, less intense, just interpersonally, I could make fun of someone and they can make fun of me and we can become friends, even though that's like not appropriate behavior, but you can joke, you know, you can banter, you can tease each other, you know, it's fun, it's enjoyable, it forms a human connection, but it also walks the line between, am I offending someone or not?
Oh,
So
I
just
have
trying
a
to balance.
I have a question for you and everyone that's related to that. If you had control, like through a switch, switching a train, going on a track that splits into a fork, and you could switch it one side or the other, and on one side there's 5 or so many people on that side, kind of being laid on the tracks, versus one person, you would easily switch it to the one person and kill one person, versus 5, versus, and then thinking of it, uh, there's just one train track, and you're on a bridge, and there's also 5 people on the track, and to save them, you would have to push someone standing next to you. He's a heavy person, so you throw him on the track, and that would knock the train out of the way and save those 5 people. So would you be able to push that fat person over the bridge to save those 5 people on the track?
I certainly have an answer, but y'all might not like it. But does anyone else want to go first? I guess Dawn didn't want to go.
She had to go.
Oh yeah, she might be back. But anyways, you know, like I've learned to, I have kind of I don't know if you would call it cruel view, but a realistic view of the world. I spent a lot of my life helping other people, and I realized that that's not always the right thing to do. So in this situation, I don't mind saying, you all might judge me. That's okay. You do you. I would see the situation, I would assess it, and then I'd turn around and walk away. Or I would, you know, try to help, you know, people in the aftermath. But to kill a person and go to jail, I was like, I don't want to do that. So that's my answer.
Kill a person that's on the bridge to save 5 other people. You might get put in jail for killing 1 person, but you saved 5 people.
Nah,
Would you
I don't
do
want to go. Nah, I'm good.
versus
So I've learned.
versus using the switch? There's 5 people on one route and 1 person on the other route, and the train's got to go one way or the other. So you have the control to switch it to go one way that kills 1 person versus, and you can't put a brake on the train, or it's a trolley, and that's the trolley problem. It seems like people are hesitant about killing the fat person by pushing him over the bridge, but they're not hesitant to switch the route of the train to kill 1 person versus 5. But it's the same action. You're killing 1 person by switching it to 1.
Well, yeah, but I'm actually kind of cruel in that regard because I wouldn't even flip the switch. Yeah, I just walk away. So if it's my job to help someone, obviously I will. But if I'm flipping a switch, and then I would be tried for murder, probably. So it's kind of like what's happening in bigger cities where someone's being attacked on a subway and no one helps, you know, which is horrible because you would want to help, you would want to intervene, you would want to help people. But people who help people go to jail now. And it's unfortunate kind of downward spiral our society's doing. But I've seen that a lot, and yeah, not into it. So if I can help someone, I'll do it. But if I have to, I used to be complete opposite. You know, if there was a bullet, I would take it just to protect anyone, even like bad people. So I've kind of had a switch on that. Or he's up.
Yes. Thank you, Grant. Thank you, Jairo. Thank you, Dominic, and thank you, Dan. It's a really, really good conversation. But I have another question for everybody. So, Grant, you just was talking about the difference or the a point of view that could be evil or not evil, or Jairo was talking about you have a choice to kill 1 or 5, and then my question is, what about the pharmaceutical industry or the medicine industry? They want to help people, like you, Grant, say that you want to help, but at the same time, you're not helping because a lot of people die because the side effects of the pharmaceutical medicines, or a lot of people die in the hospitals because of side effects, and nobody sees it like evil. So, but there's thousands of people dying around the world every single day because of that. But these are good people because they are helping. So that's my question. What do you think about?
Sure. I would say there's definitely a lot of evil in the medical industry and in all industries, and you want to try to cut it out. One thing, like as an EMT, one thing I would notice is that I worked in Atlanta back then before I moved to Florida. And we would have 50 ambulances, but some nights, all of them would be en route to a call. And then you would get a patient who calls in a 911 because their toe hurts. And then an ambulance would be sent to them because their toe hurts. But then another call would come out that was actually critical, and then they would miss them. So because they were scared of being sued because of that person's toe hurting and not getting a response, people were actually dying. And it was, really unfortunate. And they made some changes to try to counteract that. Like they had one lady who would call 911 every day to call for a response. So they counteracted that by sending a nurse to that person's house, like once a week, so that that person wouldn't. So like different balancing acts. But in terms of pharmacology, you want to do more good than harm. So that's kind of that, and you have to balance it. And my perspective is you tell the patient, give them as much information as you can as far as the risk and the benefit. Make your decisions on what's best, inform the patient of the risks and the possible benefit, and then like leave the decision to them, but like inform them as much as possible. So that's my.
Jorge,
Dominic has been so quiet.
Jorge, were you satisfied with his answer?
I'm gonna quote like the same quote that he stated in early in the conversation, and my friend Voltaire said the same. Sometimes I won't agree, but I defend to death his right to say it. No, it's good. It's good to talk about it, because I mean, I won't be able to ask this question with my friends or family. So this is the one the main reason that I'm here, because we can talk about this and share opinions. And yeah, he was literally just, he didn't want to go into deep, because I know he knows a lot of things that happens. But
Oh, no, yes. There's a lot of bad. I could give you an example if you want, but I'll let you go ahead.
yes, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I wanted. I wanted more
okay.
examples.
I didn't know what you wanted. I thought it was
I
like,
want you to
yes,
go
you
deep
want to
and see
inform
what.
people. Yeah, let's see. Some bad things I've seen. I saw, yeah, there's some ugly. Surgeon. All right. One man came in, he was wheeled in a wheelchair because he was depressed. And I was working at a surgery place at the time. I was following the surgeon around. And he came in because he was depressed, and he wanted to get a J tube because he was so depressed he didn't want to eat. He could move. He just said, I don't want to eat. I want to get a tube put into my stomach so that someone else can feed me. And that's just so inappropriate. But like, I told the surgeon, what the person said, and I was like, I don't know how we can help this person. And then the surgeon actually considered putting the J tube in just because they didn't feel like eating. And like, just, he wanted to make money. And I was like, ugh, no, like this person needs some mental help, that he like he didn't, but like he considered it. And that was nasty. Another one, there was a study they were doing where they know this. Well, I don't know. It's just there's evil stuff, but there's good people and there's bad people in hospitals. There's good doctors, there's bad ones. You want a surgeon who's, look at reviews because you can tell a lot about people, how they interact with others. Yeah, because there's good and bad people. You never know. And you want to be informed as to who people are when they're taking care of you. So it's good to, I don't know if that was helpful.
That was good. Thank you, Grant. I didn't want to push. Don, go ahead, Don.
I was going to share that, so I just recently moved. I'm still in Citrus County, but I just moved to a different area over the past weekend. And the fellow that did my move, as well as built the fence in the backyard for my new house, had an elaborate scheme that he was involved with, that he perpetrated on me, him and his girlfriend. So they friended me or befriended me in November of last year. They developed a friendship with me through a community Facebook page. And we were talking about, building a little network of businesses, they have small businesses. I have a small business where we can refer people to, you know, other businesses that are good businesses that's taking care of, you know, the community and each other. And it turns out that it was all a ruse. Their friendship was fake. I mean, they really, it was such an elaborate scheme. They shared with you, they were very open with you. And then once he got the job from me, basically he asked for a trade. Can you do my accounting, my bookkeeping, and my taxes? Because I didn't do anything for my business for last year. And can we trade with your work? And I didn't ask for his business. He asked me if I would do it. I said, yes, no problem. We can trade. You know, we can charge each other by the hour. And what we agreed to do was we agreed to discount our hourly rates. Well, he got all of his work, got all the work from me, okay, which he did poorly. I don't need to go into those details. But soon we were near the end, and he burst the bubble a little too quickly. He was excited. He got too quick, and he burst the bubble on Saturday during our move, while they were packing up my house and office to move. And he let me know, we're not friends. I was never your friend. I want to be paid cash. And I couldn't even believe it. First, I couldn't even comprehend what he was saying because it was not at all what we agreed to. And I didn't think that this was an evil or a bad person. But it turns out that they had an evil, sinister plan, which was to pretend to be your friend so that they can get in with you and get the business, and then never follow through with their side or their end of it to give you the business, but to also inflate the rate and lie about the amount of hours it took to do the work that they were assigned to do. And then they're gone. There's nothing you can do because they already got the money. But I never agreed to pay this guy cash. I paid him with a business check. I asked him for his W-9. I wanted his COI. And let me tell you, the threats that came out of this person that I had known as a friend since November, him and his girlfriend, shocked me. And I remember during this week, as I've been digesting all that's happened, I remember thinking, this is a criminal. This is an evil person. I said those words. And come to realize that, yeah, the behavior is evil, you know, to me. But what I understand is that there's a mentality that says if you're stupid enough to let them get away with it, they're entitled to get away with it. They're entitled to take whatever they want to take if you allow it. I think that that's very, very interesting. And I'd love some conversation or feedback about that, but it's to the point that evil is relative to what's going on. And I don't even have to use the word evil. I can just use the word bad or wrong, or that wasn't, you know, the right thing to do, whatever. It doesn't matter because to somebody else, they will see it in a different way anyway.
Wow.
What was the last question you had again? The last statement?
I was saying that it doesn't matter which word I use to describe the effect of what happened to me, because to somebody else, they may see it differently. They, you know, I will say this was evil, but to someone else, they might say that's not evil. They just took advantage. You left yourself open for it. That you caused that. Someone will see it differently, no matter which way you look at it.
Okay, I see. Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. So my perspective would, you know, I think everything is a balance. So we can, I believe it sounds like that person did something bad. And it sounds like he took advantage of a situation that you meant for good. When it comes to like, I do believe in a karma in a sense. I believe it's more internal than external. So when someone is perfectly good and self-sacrificing, then that person, I'm not saying this relates to like yourself in this situation, but it leaned toward the trusting side. So, but if someone is perfectly good, then they are, I guess, punished in a way. And if someone is evil, they are punished in a way. So the person who takes advantage never really enjoys what they get because they didn't truly work for it. Does that make sense? So like in my opinion, that would be like the karma aspect. They take more than they should, but they can never appreciate the rewards because they didn't truly work for it. Whereas someone who gives can appreciate what they have, but unfortunately, often what they have gets taken away by others. So that's kind of the pure good extreme also is punished in a sense, because in a way they're abusing a human, which is themselves, by, you know, whether they starve themselves to give food to others, they're still hurting someone. It's just themselves. So like that balance between, it's like, I understand other people are capable of evil. I understand I want to be good, but let's, you know, meet, you know, in the middle type. Yeah, that karma concept is something I also wanted to bring up, but sorry that happened to you. That sounds like it sucks.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I'm back. I was trying to do a couple of things.
Dominic.
You're welcome. Thanks, Carol. I was listening to you guys with my wireless headphones as I was downstairs. We just got hit up shoveling some snow. Got a foot and a half. Love it.
Oh.
Which part of Florida are you in? Jeez.
No, I'm in Toronto, Canada, Grant.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
Oh, man, a
I'm
foot and a
in
half,
the
that's
south side
ridiculous.
of Florida. I'm near Clearwaters.
Man, very
actually-
isolated snowstorm, I guess. Yeah, I don't know.
It just got dumped. Yeah, no, I was shoveling some snow when I was listening to you guys.
Wow.
As Don's driving. Are you driving through the snow, Don? That's a part of Florida. You're going to hit snow soon.
I know, I'm naked. How do we clothes on for the snow?
Well, you might hit the monsoon season just before you hit the snow.
Could be.
Nice to look at. The snow is nice to look at. To sympathize with the people that have to drive through it or work in it. So do we bang it out today, guys? Do we get a clear understanding on maybe good and evil?
What
crisis?
about thinking of it in graduations and thinking it personally, also karma personally,
Mhm.
thinking of it as we're all in a Plato's cave situation,
Mhm.
and maybe one of us goes outside and sees, oh wow, everything is visible, everything is light, there is light, I can see what's happening, and you go back inside and try to tell your friends, oh look, there's an outside, and what we're seeing is just shadows, let's go outside. No, they say, no, you're crazy, we like it here.
Well, some people would say the word crazy. It'll be like, I'm using you as an example, Grant, me and Grant seeing, let's say, aliens. And then I start asking a whole bunch of questions. Grant asks a whole bunch of, how would we be able to explain that outside of just using words, or let alone we write it down, that another person can comprehend it? Maybe some people can. I'm not going to denounce that, but it would be a struggle. That whole idea of the Plato cave is, I'm probably not pronouncing the word correctly. There's the people that are Buddhists, and then there's I think it's called the Bodhisattva's, I think they're called.
Bodhicitta? No,
Bodhicitta.
Bodhisattva.
Yeah, thank you.
Bodhisattva.
Yeah, the ones that come back to assist their fellow beings reawaken themselves. It's
Yes.
I'll give you an example. It'll be like somebody coming onto this chat and say, listen, you guys have been working so well for the last 30 years of your working career, and you've obtained $1 million. I will teach you in a short period of time how to make $1 million, $1 billion within the day. How would we comprehend that? You know, there's people that go to sleep, and by the time they wake up the next morning, they've earned more money than all 5 of us put together that we make in a lifespan. Now, again, how would that person explain to us? Would it come in forms of invest in real estate, buy casinos, own some land, rule the people? Now, that kind of ties in with good and evil again. I've always told my buddies, from one position, it might be business as usual. From the other position, you'll hear people say things like, it's not fair. Well, through observations, we do have poverty in the world. We do have greed. We have lust. We have desire. Last time I remember, a guy that actually goes and works for the military, regardless if he ever harms another human being, but he's putting himself in harm's way with the potential of all that resources being spent to fuel that. And a lot of people, I'm just using America as an example, because Canada really doesn't have a military, but we do have a British standing military that's been here for 40 years. So a lot of money goes towards military. No different if we went to the moon. How much money was expended to go up to some object in the sky? How does that help humanity? If it doesn't help humanity, then it's not really constructive as a whole. Maybe individually, a lot of people become billionaires because of it. All depends on how you perceive things. Also, is how you receive things. That's why I say you have to I can't say you have to. You can choose if you want to receive information, let alone from inside or outside. There's no way we can, in my perception anyway, there's no way I can bang out in a short 2 hours to get any sort of possibilities, let alone clarity on what good and evil is or isn't. Anyway, Jorge.
Jorge.
Yeah, again, we have the same issue here when I hear that you don't have a military like a United States, but you have the influence from England, and consciously or unconsciously, or somebody's forcing you to pay taxes, and all the majority of that money that you're paying every year. I don't know if you pay every year the taxes or every time you get a check, but you are contributing to that military, right?
Actually, Jorge, you're not.
Okay.
You're not, because we have here, when you look at the Dow Jones and all that, those are small stock markets. There's corporations. There's the Crown Corporation, which is England, and it rules over Canada and all the Commonwealth and even America.
Mm-hmm.
People are just allowed to build freely on it. That's what's called the Lodial titles. What they do is the Federal Reserve, that's not America, prints all the currencies for all their central banks. So Russia's military, Iran's military, Iraq's military, Canada's military are all being funded from printed money. The money that we pay goes to corporations, whether it's a speeding ticket, parking ticket, property taxes. Let me change the word, it's tribute. This is why when you hear politicians talk and they say things like, we're here to represent the people, they're not talking about the citizens of America. The Constitution was written for we the people and our prosperity, our bloodlines. It has nothing to do with the citizens of the nations. And until people grasp that, they don't realize how much they are indebted
You just used
mentally.
the word people. So you have two different people. The people that are the elites and the people that we think are us.
Well, no, well, we're not the people. People in the old days, they used to call them nobles. And then citizens would have been called peasants.
Then
So-
we should call ourselves peasants. We the peasants
Yeah,
of the
we
United
can.
States of America.
But again, Jaro, you have to distinguish what is the United States of America. Those are just all different states. And there's two governing boards within each state. This is why when the presidents, that's handpicked, goes to each state, and then you have the, what do they call it? The ones that their votes actually count, because they represent corporations. If you elect me, this is what I'm going to do in Indiana. This is what I'm going to do in Michigan. They're actually doing it in plain sight. The popular vote does not count. Everything else, it only tells the pulse of the nations. So do we have to worry about civil unrest? Listen to the word, civil unrest. And then they hire from the citizens, police officer and military. There's generational wealth, guys. It has nothing to do with you, but in a way it does, because we do exchange our energy.
Oh,
You know, a ruler cannot rule over land if he doesn't have people using their energy. I don't give a damn if it's picking cotton or working in a factory. You know, and until people become
Yeah.
aware of that, go ahead.
we're all slaves. We peasants are slaves.
To a
We
certain
must
point,
revolt now.
to-
Make
Dude,
me the king.
you do have a king. Your hemispheres are king and
Oh.
queen.
Make
That's
me
what
the
the-
king and queen.
That's where the concept came from. The hemispheres are your king and queen.
There's my king. There's my queen.
Yep. Left hemisphere, right hemisphere.
My third
One's
eye.
logical and one's creative. And then you have your heart, which is
throat.
go ahead.
My heart.
It's the gesture. It's the one that privately says, listen, you're king and queen. It doesn't matter who's right or wrong. You're not running your kingdom correctly. We all have our own kingdoms within.
Yes, Grant.
Yes,
Let's
okay.
grant a question or an answer.
I had a
Time.
question for Hyro. Or yourself. Just want to see your thoughts on this. So in the Plato's cave kind of analogy, if the person left the cave and realized that outside of the cave, there's, you know, a whole world, but it's a lot worse. But like with a potential for making that person's life better, should he tell the other people or let them enjoy the dream?
Good question.
Because like there's a potential for them to improve their lives, but there's also just them having to make sense of a harsh reality. You know what I mean?
I know you directed to Hyro there,
Yeah.
Grant. There's the enchantment and disenchantment part you're talking about.
Yeah.
And if you are enchanted, I still think it's a responsibility of a person to share out loud, because as you're sharing out loud, you're the teacher student. So now if you do discover that you've been living inside of yourself and all of a sudden now you're aware you're not the body and the vessel, that's exactly what the Plato cave mean. This has nothing to do with looking at the external world. It means that you've been living inside of that cave the whole time. And now you're trying to explain to other people, you couldn't give your body even if you wanted to, because that's not who you are. Now, some people will entertain the idea, well, I don't believe in that. I said, well, you're stuck on beliefs. Or you just use the word reality. What is reality? Is reality the material you see? Is reality the words you use? Is reality the fact that when you go to sleep, your eyebrows still moving back and forth, your eyelids and all that kind of stuff? Everything that you've learned, Grant, if you haven't questioned it, throw it out the fucking door. But that's me just saying that out loud. But if you don't question those things, what you end up doing is you're trying to justify a very linear process. Now, again, that's metaphorically, it could be analog, you could use analogs, or I'm sorry, analogy, I'm not even pronouncing it correctly. But again, regardless of where a person has to find their own way of how to perceive, let alone receive things. So now, if you discover that you're in some sort of cave, whatever you think you are, go ahead, George, he did ask you the question.
Yes, thank you. That was an excellent interruption, Dominic. And it answered the question in a way. And yes, that's a good question. So in the Plato's allegory, so I go outside and I see that there's light. Wow, and I can see things as they really are. And then I remember my friends, oh, they're in a cold cave and they're just seeing shadows and they're entertained by them. And I go in there and I say, well, hey guys, there's an outside. You will become enlightened. You will become a Buddha and you will be free from suffering. No, I don't want to go. I like it here in my delusions. And so, okay, go ahead, be that way. So I guess I there's nothing I can do about it. I guess you can't force them. Maybe you could, maybe you could use, like create shadows of people going outside the cave, and say, and may have maybe a beautiful woman shadow to kind of pull them out.
Yeah, fair enough. But Hiro, my question was like, what if you went outside the cave, but instead of light, it was much
Oh,
worse?
that's right. What if
Yeah,
you
yeah.
went outside and it's worse than it's inside? It's actually worse. What would happen then? And then you go
Yeah.
inside and tell them, oh, the way it is outside is the way it really is, but it's worse. So I think you should stay here.
So you'd still tell them, but don't look at it. Okay.
Maybe,
That's, I mean, yeah.
I guess
But-
in that sense, would it make a person or reveal a person? Because if I see something that I, let's say, don't like, it would reveal that I have likes and dislikes. So it perpetuates more of an inquiry. But if a person wants to, and this is where a person gets mindset, although I just don't like it, I'm going to do everything to avoid it. Well, then you're going to miss some of the parts that's within it. It's like a person, some people have to put their hands on the stove to experience the ideal of pain and vocal cords, where other people can observe somebody and say, well, thank you very much. Through your misfortune, I've learned something. We actually are doing the cave all the time with our actions, but we put too much value in thinking the speech and written work is going to delete our senses, even though you have to use your senses to read and write.
or maybe like that reminds me of the movie Life is Beautiful, where this father and the son are in the concentration camp,
Mhm.
and they're soldiers outside, and they're inside in their prison shack, and so when they go, he goes outside with his little kid. He doesn't want them to see his little kid, or they'll take him away. And so he tells the kid that this is like a play or a game, and you have to hide from him and things like that, and don't let him see, or whatever he tells his son is really a lie, but he's telling a lie, a pretend lie, to continue a certain illusion or delusion.
Mhm.
But it's he's not telling him reality the way it is, because then it would freak him out, and then he would get killed, or and eventually the boy gets saved, and he survives the Auschwitz or concentration camp or
Okay, but
whatever.
Gerald, here's a snapshot. You're talking, and this is how media controls the mind. You get the snapshot.
One moment, I want to tell Hiro that was very helpful for me. Thank you. In my illustration, was walking out of the cave. It's far worse, but you could kind of make it better. So, like in a sense, the person should walk into the cave, teach them what he learned, but not tell them all the horrors he saw, but like tell them enough to make their lives better in a way. So it's one take on it, and I hadn't thought of that. So,
Well,
And maybe
but-
parents do that with their kids, like they don't tell them
yeah, that's
things
fair.
the way it is. They hide sex from them, tell them about the birds and bees and the stork bringing kids, and maybe tell them like the lies about Santa Claus, and get them excited about Christmas that way.
Yeah,
Because
but you
you're-
eventually
you're-
want them to know the truth, I guess, for children, and
Eventually.
I guess for people as well.
A lot
So
of
I
those
guess
things,
kind of work up to it.
a lot of those things, guys, is a snapshot. So I'll give you an example. Your ego's fed when you watch Lords of the Ring, because you only see the hero. So now that snapshot that Jaro was talking about, the father and his son in some sort of, unfortunate situation. If you could get a snapshot in that same moment of a prison guard walking into his house with his kid, or some now mother that has to go to another snapshot saying, my child got just killed, or my husband just got killed. There's so many different snapshots, but unfortunately, most people only are led by their ego and their dramatization or outcomes such as sports, opposed to all the different parts to it. So now if I did see a child and their father, and say, listen, I was able to have another snapshot and now see the warden going into his house, talking to his kids about my day at work, or the guy that's the executioner. These are all different snapshots, but the ego's only being led by what it wants to see or what it's been programmed to see. Next time you watch movies, look in the background. When you're watching sports, they zoom in on only what's happening. What about everything else that's going around you? Now that's all the conditioning. And if you're not willing to even comprehend what I just shared, what you're doing is you're looking for points opposed to many points. See, cognitive dissonant is usually a person that's set in one way. Do you see the glass half full, half empty? Another person says, well, I'm able to see two. I said, can you see thousands of possibilities? Do you see the painting? Do you see the table? Do you see that you don't see the words that explain onto those objects? Until you become aware of that, you're not really going to fully engage in what the dogmas have done to you and your forefathers. Now, I'm doing this purposely on purpose. I'm being that the idiot right now. But I find it humorous when I'm hearing, even Jarl, when you're talking about the whole concept of Plato in the cave is to feed the me, which is fine. But then you have to say, am I compassionate enough? Compassion doesn't mean because you feel sorry for a person. No, you're giving the same energy with them. I've experienced sadness and I'm going to give you sadness. None of this bullshit crap of thinking, well, things are going to get better. I said, no, in the moment, I'm feeling sad. In the moment, I'm angry. In the moment, I'm happy. Those are just moments. And what are those moments? They're energy and motion. It doesn't matter if it's a feeling, a thought. It could be reason. We even use the word reason, again, son, or theory. If you ever broke down the word theory, you'll understand a little bit more. Same with conspiracy, let alone agendas, opposed to facts. These are all captions. And most of us see things far or close. Forget about the side ventures. Other animals like horses, they have their eyes set to the side. They're seeing things that we regularly don't see because we have to move our heads so we can still see up or close. Sorry, far and close. Anyway, I went on again because all of these can be broken down into so small programs, or in this case, directories.
I want to thank you. I want to thank Jairo and Gran again. That was a good, a different point of view about the Plato's Cave. And sometimes I ask myself, how do I take this information to people that have a different belief system? And now I got the answer. We have to treat them like kids that they don't know any better. You have to find a way to tell them, but not to tell them, how can we tell to somebody that was raised with a Catholic belief system, that like candles and prays to a picture? We cannot tell them, hey, you know what? This is not working. This is not for you. This is all a lie. And that's how we, the approach of treating like a kid is the best way to do it. Well, that's what I got from that comment about the Plato's Cave. Thank you all.
Once again, how do I know? How do we all not know that I'm actually coming from the cave and I'm trying to share with you guys? Can you see the possibility, whether you have resistance or you're so caught up in your likes and dislikes, it'll be like going to a therapist, but prior to going to a therapist, somebody told you you have a problem, and then you've done a lot of studying, and then you go to the therapist and you start telling the therapist what all your problems, all your solutions, and then why the heck are you here? Can a person truly question themselves, hence know thyself? It was never self-knowledge.
Sure.
It was, yeah, and I'm with you on that. You can question the self, but are we here to question others?
Well, we want to test each other's views. I think that's healthy. So we can kind of see them from different angles, because like you might think of something that I haven't thought of in terms of like my view of the world, and then you question that view of the world, and I'm like, oh, I didn't see it that way. And then I could see it from different angles to decide, well, I still do think it that way, but you might open my mind and kind of expand it a little, and vice versa.
Well, it goes back to people say happy wife, happy life. I said, who's responsible? Then you can make them
That
sad.
is a lie.
No,
That is a
well,
lie.
no, it has its, well, no, it has its issue, Grant, in a sense. If you can make somebody happy, therefore you can make them sad. I don't think it's the responsibility of one human being. So when I say question oneself, I'm not here to question you. I'm just sharing out loud. I could give two shit who you are. The reason why I say that is because I've never lived inside of your kingdom. So it's your responsibility. Question is, have you ever questioned yourself? And you probably
Of course,
have.
I
course.
think that's why we're all here. Yeah, yeah.
Maybe not at this particular chat, but maybe we're here to learn. Some people might interpret this realm as a prison. Some people think it's a matrix. Some people it's a pleasantry. It's all one's perception. The only thing
Exactly,
is,
and we're all comparing them. That's nice.
maybe, yeah, that's another validity actually. But if that brings you some sort of value, and as you use the word, because that has many energy to even value. Sorry, Donnie,
Yeah,
I
it
see your hand up.
makes me happy.
I was just going to share, listening to you both, that recently I had, I guess, a little daydream about the movie The Matrix and the character, the Smith. And I liken the Smith to us humans because we have a hard time accepting differences and that it's okay. It's a part of this world. Opposites. That's what we're here to witness, these opposites, but still realize that we are one. And the Smith is always trying to change everything, everyone into him. It's all about him, him, him. Everyone needs to be like me. And I believe that's what we saw in that movie. In the end, after several series, you could see that this Smith had gotten out of control. It was like a virus. It was sick. It was trying to make everything exactly like him. And I noticed when Jorge was talking about, stepping outside of the cave and realizing, oh my God, it's bad out here. But it's relative because to someone else, they may be so excited to get the hell out of that cave that outside might be better to them than what's in the cave. Everything seems to be relative to me. I'll let Jairo take over.
Are you talking about Agent Smith? Okay,
Yes.
that's that. Like he's like a cop, like this guy.
Yes, that Smith eventually got out of control because he was so self-centered. He wanted everything to be, and fixing the matrix, he wanted to fix the problem with the humans. Well, they need to be more like him, of course, because that's the solution. But every time we find a solution, we create a problem because in reality, the problem only exists in our minds about how we see things. And I was going to add that I think I mentioned at another session, revisited the original Kung Fu series, only to discover it had nothing to do with what I thought it was as a child. And that it's really about a man who, on his journey, after being programmed, he was using a systematic program in a temple, being programmed to and how to believe and see the world, went out on his own to experience the world, and constantly was involved with derelicts who were trying to take advantage of him. He basically had nothing because everyone took everything from him constantly, but he never allowed that to change his being. This stuff that's happening is horrible. I cannot not stop being a loving person and a giving person. I can't do it. I'm not going to be the person that sees someone getting hurt and then do nothing about it. I can't do it. It means I might get hurt with it. I'm willing to do that because that's who I am. And I cannot allow this evil, this horrible environment that we sometimes involved in to change who I am at the core. And I think that was the message with Kung Fu, is that even though he experienced all of this, he remained who he was inside to the core.
Wow, thank you for that perspective on Kung Fu, the television series from way back. Where can you see that? Is it on YouTube or where?
I
Is that
have
with Dean Cain?
go ahead.
Kwai
Is that
Chang
with Dean
Caine?
Cain?
Yes, it's with Kane.
Cool. Yeah, respect.
Kane. The actor is David Carradine. Yes.
Where can I watch it again?
I was watching, I believe, on I think it was on Freevee. Freevee is the network. I just stream, so I use a Roku or a Fire Stick.
Wow, I should watch. There's a lot of uh, moments of Chinese philosophy in there, Buddhist philosophy here and there. That got me into
Yes,
karate and Chinese philosophy.
I
Now,
was so
again,
surprised to find what I found when I rewatched that series. He went through a number of different things that we all end up going through in life, but one of the most interesting ones was when he went through having dissonance, when he realized that his temple was supposed to be standing up for good, also made money off of things that were not good. So basically, a woman
Wow.
said that she
Didn't know that.
was, she said, yes, my brother went to, he went to your temple and he was trained at your temple and studied at your temple. But that was because I had to be sold. My family sold me in order to get the money to pay for him to go to this temple. And the character came, he couldn't believe it. He says, no, we would never do that. They would never allow it. But he had to accept reality. It was very interesting.
Really? That must be a later episode, like towards the end. I don't know.
I think it was in the middle, but yes.
Let's get
I see
Dominic in.
hand up.
Thanks, Grant. Take it with a grain of salt, guys. They've done studies when there's been like a revolution done in the country. They've released prisoners, for example, that have been so many years in prison. And what their studies has found that quite a few of them, they go back because that's all they've ever known. So think about generational people that have been slaves or masters. It's the same metaphor with the Plato's cave. Grant was touching on it. If you finally saw it, or most people, what they would do, if they saw something that, wow, I can't believe that an alcoholic realizing how much they've harmed people, would they go back to their old ways? Probably not. But they would be so scared of a different way that they would probably be fighting not their new ways as much as going back to their old ways. Because we've been so conditioned. It's like learning to play the piano with your right hand. Well, not piano's not a good analogy because you play with both hands, but say an instrument with one hand. It would take a lot of reconditioning to first make your left hand or your right hand, vice versa, to be just as equal, but yet you would lean towards the one hand more times than not. On average, not saying that every human being is all the same, but again, once a person becomes aware of things, to go back to the way you were is because it's lined with comforts. This is why when people commit crimes, that's all they've ever known. To present to something new, it'll be like telling somebody that's been nothing more than a Christian all their life, and it just happens to be under their envelope. They've lived a privileged life, maybe. I'm just using some of them, not all of them. And they think, well, everything's peachy king. They're not put them in a war situation. They would be fighting to go back to their comforts. So now, to try to explain that to somebody else, this is why an outside source has to keep pounding you. You can't write with your left hand. Why? If they dare not tell you why, because we're trying to stunt one of your hemispheres. Dare not say, okay, you can't learn how to read or write. Why would I want to know that when I have the gift of oral speech or comprehension? This is why we just don't see those things, because most people are materialistic kind of people. If it's not in the material, well, then let's use the material. Why do you think that prisoner is trying to go back to prison? Because his comforts are there. He knows where his food is. This is kind of like where the cheese keeps going back to the same trap, even though there's no more cheese there. That's conditioning. Try to learn a different language today. And try to be as equal as you are with the language you're proficient with now.
Wow. Go ahead, Jorge.
Yeah, I have to go, but before I leave, listening to all of you, I reminded of a quote or a metaphor from Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau. I don't know if you heard the story. I'm pretty sure you heard the story when Henry David Thoreau was in jail because he didn't agree to pay taxes, because he thought himself that he was contributing to the slavery in the revolution that was in place. And Ralph Walsh Emerson asking, what, Henry, what are you doing in there? And Henry David Thoreau reply, Waldo, what are you doing out there? And it's a little bit, in my mind, I related with the Peiroscape and all that you've been talking about.
Wow. Let me think about it.
Yeah, well said.
And okay, guys, it was nice talking to you. Thank you, Dominic. Thank you, Jairo. Now I have two new teachers, Grant and Dan.
Thank you,
Jairo, all of you
Jorge.
have
Thank
been,
you.
I've been learning a lot from you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. I'm
I
learning
have
Great
a
to
lot
go.
from
conversation, yeah.
Jorge,
So if I can share, guys, there is other
teacher
kinds of
Jorge.
other programs
Jorge.
going on where people that are generational wealthy and you've inherited, hate to say this, but slaves. They have programs running. So if you're like Abraham Lincoln, you just can't give up your slaves. It's built in the program. This is why it goes back to the Plato's Cave. You find out, geez, when I become my dad's owner of the company, I'm gonna let all my slaves go. No, that's generational. And even that, people don't realize, okay, what happens to the people that now, you forget about the fact that, how do I get in prison? Now I'm free. So what, you're free to what? You give me a piece of paper, and when I go outside of those gates, that I'm not gonna be what? Like the depiction of roots, it was so misleading. Where, what do I do now? Okay, well, I'm taking my kids. No, those kids stay here. It's like when you're a citizens of the nations, where would you go? There's so many programs going on that maybe it would be easier to seek what's good, because maybe we are living in some people concept of evil. That's why we're probably thinking, well, I'd rather avoid evil. Well, you're in it. You know, men will actually debate with each other, but ignore the fact that, okay, what about the other gender, let alone the next generation, which is the kids? You know, we'll neglect them, and we'll think that privately, maybe that should be worthy enough, where a woman should be leading the house, probably maybe privately. But a lot of women might say, I don't agree with that. Well, then how do we make that work in a commerce system? You know, should we make everybody equal in the sense that we all have the potential to earn the same amount of money? For most men, they'd be at a disadvantage. We live in an era now where we have a lot of convenience. So that's why men really don't have to get married, because they don't want to openly admit that my wife is kind of like my maid. They're not ever say that out loud, let alone women say, well, you're just my handyman. Well, then where's love in all of that? You know, again, that's possibilities. But like I was saying, a lot of things are built into the program. So people just think, they magically think they see a person that owns houses, because they're not landlords, and that's a different type of person, but they're in the housing business. They only perceive through their imagination what they think they could do with the money that they have or don't have. They're not realize how much responsibility they got to do. It's like somebody talking to Dawn. Oh yeah, it's accountant. Dawn probably has to do a lot of work, and she's probably at home still thinking about it, maybe, if she's able to know how to disassociate from it. But anyway, I went on again.
Oh, you good? Ira's screen looks crazy. I love it.
Yes, I don't want you to see my messy room.
Now it's your messy galaxy.
That's my fan.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a nice addition. It looks cool, actually. But yeah, Dominic, I would say, like, with deprogramming, whether it's ourselves or others, it's interesting because there's a lot of times pain that goes with that as well, which is kind of an interesting concept of learning new things. It actually hurts. I don't know, it's just interesting concept. It causes pain to actually break out of different systems, or where everything you were taught to think, and then you realize something about that might have been wrong. It's like, oh, that was wrong. I've spent all this time doing this, and yet I didn't have to, you know, and et cetera, stuff like that. So it's interesting, the pain and that type of shift. But you know, it's important. It's I think part of everyone growing and stuff to kind of question what they do, question what society is, and then just kind of create, I guess, use what they know to better themselves and the ones they care about, I guess, and those around them, etc.
A lot of it, Grant, is we have potential. I'll give you an example. Pain is another program. So now I wouldn't wish this upon somebody, but somebody now is tied up and then they slit their finger off. Then you sit there and you observe them. They'll bleed for a while, they'll get angry for a while. Some of them will actually start rationalizing. Other people start getting angry. But eventually for some people, they'll start expressing different kinds of emotions. So that means, are they truly in pain? Or are they angry and all that? Because we don't explore all those different potential. Now, when a person limits themselves and say, but I don't want to suffer, well, then you're going to have to really deal with the biggest part of suffering. What do you mean? It's not about resistance to pain as much as it's to attachments to your comforts. That is the number one suffering. Now, a person says, but wait a second, Dominic, but that's not suffering. I said, well, then you have to explain lust and desire then. You can be addicted to anything. But most of us are dependent on a lot of things. But when we start giving up some of our dependency for a stronger thing, such as some people smoke, that's usually a sign of grieving, or drinking is a sign of anger. Those are all emotions attached to it. When I say emotion, I'm just talking about energy, emotion, but within the subdirectories, there could be feelings, there could be thinking. So now when a person says, I just want to be nothing but happy, I said, that will be experienced in a moment. Just don't be attached to it. But I want more of it. I said, well, now you're the guy that's underneath the bridge fucking snorting crack. But no different somebody that goes around and wielding a sword saying, but I want to earn as much money as I possibly can. I said, well, then how are you helping the system? Well, I'm helping the system, what? By taking? Where's the giving? You know, a lot of people struggle with the ideal of receiving, but yet they like to give. I said, well, then how are you actually truly going to understand the complete loop if you don't know how to accept it? Now, if you're forcing somebody by giving, well, then you're going to have to learn by somebody forcing you to give it to you, opposed to if you choose to share it freely, then be prepared to receive it freely. That's how magnetic works. But unfortunately, most of us never get to that awareness. And when I say most of us, that's including me too. But I'm sharing certain parts of it. Once again, I have no problem saying I could be full of shit. I'm always keeping myself in check. Dare not somebody else say, Dominic, you know, I just went to university. Maybe I'm full of shit. I said, at least you're humbling yourself with the possibility. But people will gladly say, well, Dominic, I'm a PhD. I said, that just means a physician, means a healer. But for who? Like I said, I'm the kind of person I will observe it and say, okay, well, we have more doctors and lawyers in the world. Does that tell us that we're taking care of ourselves and dealing with our own affairs? Or are we becoming such a fucking bunch of lazy fucking twits? And I'm okay with saying those words, but how many people can say that to themselves? You don't have to say it publicly. You could do that in your own little world when you're driving your car like Don is doing and turn off the remote and say, you know something? I'm the cat's meow, or I'm full of crap. And then you can say, okay, but am I being true to myself? Forget about true, like a wheel. Are you being true to yourself? Are you okay? Because a person that's a narcissist or a psychopath or a sociopath, most of them are underdeveloped emotionally. A guy going to the gym trying to make himself look pretty just for his own, so other people can look, wow. I said, that's a narcissist. A sociopath, he has a different kind of outlook. But if they're true to themselves, now, what about the people that are around those people? What kind of children are they? Oh, my wife's a narcissist. What are you? See, the whole story of Adam and Eve was about pointing fingers. They're not, people understand the serpent came up to Eve, if we're going to go with the story, and asked Eve quite clearly, did God say so? Yes or no? What do you mean? Because the Lord God was talking to Adam. Oh, that's not what it means. Really? So then what was the name east of Eden? What was the garden's name? They're not ever people go inside and say, okay, if something's been inspired to be written or spoken, you have to go inwards. Now, once again, I could be full of shit, but you know something? If I was talking to Socrates, I would say, aren't you full of shit? Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Joan of Arc. I don't care who you are, because it's what comes out of your mouth that I can have discernment with. Not about who you are. This is where we get caught up that, well, I'm important. Yeah, in my world, in my little world. But outside of that, I'm like everybody else. I could be hit by a tree. I don't wish that upon myself, but I could.
Dominic,
Yes, go ahead, Charles.
you're full of manure, but that's good. That's good because without manure, we couldn't grow gardens,
Wow. See, Charles, I say
flowers, and things like that.
I say I'm full of
Growing
shit.
gardens.
A wise child would turn around and say, what type of shit are you, Dom? I said, well, there's fertilizing shit, there's toxic shit, and there's the kind of shit that actually insects have to reproduce in it. But when Jaro, you can say to yourself, you've opened up a door. Doesn't mean what I'm saying is right or wrong. It's just, I'm just using words. You know, I can use the word consciousness or prana or chi. Those are just words. But I get it. I wouldn't be able to identify with my name if I'm walking in the flea market and a total stranger called my name and then my mom calls my name. I would turn around because I would probably pick up the frequency from my mom's voice than I would from a stranger. But that's me being aware of things. Other people say, Dominic, it's all about me. When I hear my name, I just turn around. I said, there's many people named Dominic or Grant or Don, but that reveals you. It doesn't make you. We are that stone. You chisel, you chip away at it, then you'll find
So
out who you
one of
really
your
are.
points, like, I think if someone attains everything that they could ever want, they'll be miserable. I
Maybe,
think that's,
but
you know,
but are you talking from guessing? Because want means lack at that point, Grant. You're putting an input where if you truly did experience that,
sure.
how,
Yeah,
even
I
if you
have.
did, let's say you did, how would you explain that to us? Because you just put around and say, well, this, you're making a quick assumption. It's like saying, Dom, you just met the most intellectual being you'll ever be in the presence of. I'm not saying that I am that way. How would you pull it out of your own directory? And what would that make you? Maybe you are what you are. And, you know, I'm not here to denounce you, but at the same time, I'm here to question what I hear out of your mouth. Now, if you turn around
Yeah,
and say,
questioning is good.
I know, but as long as you realize those words that you're using aren't yours, you're just experiencing them. You don't own anything, Grant. And if you do, when you go to sleep, where does it go? When you're awake, who's been running your body the whole time? Who's been running your blood in your body right now? Your ego doesn't do that.
Well, you know,
Ponder
I
it.
like,
Don't just ponder it. I'm not asking you to answer anything for me.
sure, but I'm
Okay.
asking you to ponder for me.
Okay, please. Share.
Things that are functional. We want to understand the things that we do have control over, so we can optimize, you know, both our own lives and lives of others, do more good, do less evil, you know, types of things like that. So we do have control in a sense. Like I don't really believe in I believe in kind of a limited free will, not from a religious perspective, but from a psychological thing. But yeah, but there's some things that we have control over. If I do not like my situation, I can work to get to another situation, and etc. So I think it's good to focus on the functionality versus the theories. Is like, how can we use theories for functions and functions for theories, etc. Iro, are you enjoying your time and space?
Yes, space. I wonder about space.
I have a question about space, Hyro.
Since you're out there, yep.
Since you're out there, I have a question. Is it the final frontier?
Final frontier. Is space the final frontier? How about it? What about the mind? Isn't the mind the final frontier?
Well, do you remember that Star Trek? They used to start off with that space, the final frontier. What is space? Is it the field of the mind?
Isn't the final frontier the mind, because we don't know what the mind is. Oh.
Again, interesting conversations today. We just moved or flowed from topic to topic so easily, yet all the topics are connected. Really cool.
To
Yeah,
be
yeah,
or
good
not to
conversation.
be. To be or not to be.
Choose to be.
Being good. I think we are all good. We are not evil. That's the truth. We are all good. Even the evilest of evil persons. There's some good in there somewhere. We have to dig it out.
Nah, you just shoot it in the head.
I agree, Grant.
When it goes too far, yeah, you just gotta. So, but it's good to have differences of opinion because that helps us think about things from different angles. So I like that.
Absolutely, indeed. Well, I think I'm gonna go ahead and get off of here. This was great, you guys, and I missed you when I couldn't join you in the last weekend. I hope you have a great
Oh, wow.
one.
Thank you. I learned
All right,
so
you
much.
too. It's nice meeting you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Grant. How did you
Yeah.
find us?
I looked up philosophy on Meetup.
Wow. It's
Because
working.
not
We
enough people
found
talk deep anymore. You know, it's good talking
we
deep.
found a deep thinker in Grant. We have been granted thinking deeply about things.
I have been
Thank
granted
you
others who think deeply.
for joining us.
Oh, of course.
I hope you learned something.
Yeah, it was good.
Mm.
Right, and I guess Dominic might be away.
I'm here, guys. I'm hearing you guys.
Oh, okay. All right, but yeah, Dominic enjoyed the time, and it was great, chatting with you all.
Enjoy yourself, Grant.
Have
All right,
a
y'all
great
good
weekend.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye. If you have to go,
Mr. Jarbo,
I'm still here.
are you going to be ready next week for the big podcast so I can ask you questions?
Oh yes, that was. I'm thinking about it. Yes, I'm listening. I'm listening to interesting conversations about it. They're blowing my mind.
Hold on.
I have to make some adjustments. Maybe I have to clear away my evil thoughts so that I can let the sunshine in. Let the sunshine. And I have to well, maybe I'm still in Plato's cave. I have to figure out how to get out.
Mhm.
Or I need to find someone that's been out there and has come back to rescue me. A bodhisattva, a Buddha, Amitabha.
I think
I'm going
Jarbo,
to the Chinese Buddhist temple where they have a Buddha of light. They call him Buddha Amitabha,
I think
the
Jarbo,
Buddha of infinite light.
I was going to say
I'm going
Jarbo.
to go there to do yoga,
Enjoy.
practice yoga at 11:30.
Yeah.
Oh, what time is it? I'm
Almost
going to
11.
be late. Let's see. Oh, I think I'll make it on time this time. Yay!
I think Jarbo, I think this is why, when Young brought up the shadow self, is because people limit themselves. When you're pursuing happiness, you're going to miss the shadow parts of you, and vice versa. People that are very destructive are going to miss, or they just privately say, I'm only kind with my kids and be happy with my family, but publicly I have a different persona. So
Oh,
this is where a person has to unlimit themselves and look at their potential.
yeah.
Can we harm another person? Yes, maybe that's why this lifetime you got to experience of being in the military, but you didn't want to have to get to a point where you had to kill another human being. So we really don't know, Jarro. And if the people do know, how would they explain it to another one of us where we have a different mission? I don't know everybody's karma. Everybody doesn't know my karma. But it does reveal if people are very intellectual, very compassionate, very clairvoyant. So Jaro, you have an amazing ability to comprehend certain things. Just because me and you watch a video of a runner doesn't mean me and you can start practicing tomorrow, or let alone for 10 years, and we can become like that. So once again, you know, I don't use the word good and evil. I might use other words, like I don't really use the word belief system, but I do realize I do have belief systems. I just don't have to wear it like a badge. You know, when people say it, they're revealing a lot about themselves, which is fine. You know, when people go to a party, not everybody go there just to interact. People go there and they want to make sure, okay, I do plumbing, or I'm a lawyer. They're trying to network with each other. And a lot of groups are like that. They're bringing out, you know, their insecurities in a form of security. Oh, I'm a doctor. Okay, well, we were just having a conversation about world crisis. Can you tie in as a doctor? Well, I did borders. I did Doctors Without Borders. Oh, okay. So that then I can see how the conversation flows. But some people, Gerald, they're just so in left field that when they hear me talk, I said, okay, so what are you getting from what I'm saying? Because if you're listening from within, then you realize, did I really ask these kind of questions? Well, no, then why are you here? You know, again, you know, I come here, Jaro, because I do hear that statement, you know, wake up and think clearly. Well, first, most people are asleep. Forget about waking up literally physically. They're already asleep. So once they wake up, then and only then they can start thinking. And then hopefully after they start thinking, then they can actually start doing it clearly. There's a reason why you probably had that name, Jaro. You might have just been pulled, but your spirit said, no, Jaro, you need to learn something this time. So you're going to be presented to a whole bunch of people. Don't think one's right or one's wrong. But if you are going to think one's right, then you have to entertain what you think is wrong. Anyway.
Oh, thank you. And what do you think about when the bodhisattva that went outside and everything is light, and they said, oh, but I should tell my friends, they're really in bad shape. This is wonderful. Let's assume that it is wonderful. And so he goes back in as a bodhisattva, and he says, but then when he goes back in, it just occurred to me, when you're in the light and then you go into the dark, then you can't see anything. Your eyes have to be adjusted to the darkness. It's probably black, pitch black in the cave when he goes back in. Well, before he was used to it because it was dim and he could see the shadows. But now when he goes back in this time, he'll be stumbling and all that. Imagine that.
Bodhikata does not, Jaro, come back to reinforce or feed more of the stuff that people want for pleasantries. Once you come back, Jaro, you have to play the initial maybe 5, 10, 15 years of being reconditioned, and then you get reawakened, and then you realize you came back to help your fellow being. You didn't want to be selfish.
Oh, yeah.
Some people become very selfish and then they pursue nirvana. That's fine, get them out of the equation. But there's a lot of us come back, Jaro, so we can assist the ones that eventually, when they're ready to be reawakened, we'll be there for them. What I'm sharing with you, I'm just still practicing myself to be the student. But when I'm with you guys, I'm in the playground. I'm not here to waken you up or anybody else. You might already be awoke. So now the Bodhikatas, or I'm not pronouncing it correctly, are the ones that come back into the light, are here to assist other people. Why? Because you're living in somebody else's realm. Either A, I can share with you, respect the kingdom that you're in, or if you don't want to be here anymore, do the work so the next time you don't have to come back here again. But this is not about, well, I don't like the ruler, I want him to leave. No. This ruler is always going to stay here. It's not your job to change the rulers. Your job is to determine, do you want to understand the rules and enjoy while you're here? Or if you don't enjoy it, because you get people that are very selfish and they want to just eliminate themselves, they want to do suicide. You're going to come back again anyway. Only problem is now you're going to have a little bit more stones on you. What do you mean? I said, you want to be selfish, that's one thing, but respect where you're at. And how do you do that? Respect strangers. But unfortunately, most people only respect the people that they know because they feel safe. People don't know who I am. I'm not concerned about who I am. But what I say should be a concern. Hence discernment. Now, Jaro,
Yeah.
you're going to do what you're going to do, and you're going to say what you're going to say. But if you're truly trying to do the ways of the Buddha, which one are you going to do? The 13 different times he had to be rebirthed because he was so attached to the ideal of breaking karma? Don't know. And what? We think after 13 times that he actually went to the promised land? Who knows? And even if you did know, what does that do for me or you? You know, I share things such as there is organizations out there that are pretty well organized, and their job is to rule certain stages, but they're not the rulers. They're not, you find out there's rulers that actually rule the trees, the water, the animals, the birds, the insects. But if you think what that picture behind you is exactly where we live, entertain yourself, because nothing that's here is up there. So how can we assume that it's round? It's a guess. I'm not saying I'm into the flat earth or round earth, but if you're a Christian, you got to value the concept of four corners. Is the four corner look like a cross or like an X? And who rules those four corners, the four winds? You know, I'm just yapping, Jaro, because I will re-listen to this video. But how
Oh,
many people-
keep yapping. I'm getting inspiration
maybe
because when you say this, it brings up that, and when you say that, it brings up this, and ideas are popping up. And I was the reason why I brought up Plato's Cave. I was trying to kind of say that there's good and evil, but they're not so black and white. It's more like graduated, and maybe good, like you say, is synonymous with spiritual, and evil is synonymous with material. And so what you could be saying is that the grosser things, or the material, that's like being in Plato's cave. Everything's dark, and when you go outside, everything's light. So light is lighter, and dark is heavier, and so it's more like graduated. So somehow we're suffering in the dark, and then when someone has the good fortune or good luck to get outside and see the light, then it's probably incredible. So instead of staying outside, and maybe out of compassion, that person says, oh no, I can't stay here and forget about my friends, my loved ones. I got to go back and rescue them.
Jaro, can I spin it a little bit? You're suffering more. You're suffering in the light. I'll give you an example, Jaro. We have a simple example. Good and evil, it's like zeros and ones. Zero is all encompassing. One wants to break away. Black and white. Black is all encompassing. White is just one. The light and the darkness. So the person that actually plays good and evil, they're just playing parameters. They're thinking one is right and the other one's wrong. One encompasses the other. So the known is encompasses by the unknown. So now in this particular case, we choose to be in the light mint. In light mint, mind. But we come from somewhere else. So now when a person talks about zeros and ones, what about all the other numbers? When a person talks about good and evil, what about all the other different degrees? You know, it's like you can get 490 degrees Jaros. How do you make that a circle? You see, because nature is all about angles. This is why when they did Latin with numbers, they use angles. We use round now in this language. So Jaro, in this particular case, you're coming from the darkness in the Plato's cave, and now you come into the light. You're coming into suffering. Suffering is about you're going to live, you're going to die. And then you're going to come back again, you're going to live and die. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to come back as a human. You might come back as an animal, you might come back as a tree. Again, you have to pose the ideal. Are you the body? Or are you the essence to it? So now, for me and you have an incredible ability. You're just not tapping into it, meaning that you're trying to force yourself to be very linear, where your gift is actually, you're not linear. You actually see many things, and you perceive many things, and you also receive many things. But the senses are limited, meaning that a simple example, you can see a dolphin, and then a person puts a dolphin with a hologram jumping off the wall. Does that confirm that's reality? Or my mind could easily be, or in this case, my senses could easily be misled. That's all it means. There's no right or wrong in that equation, but it's when you choose to think one is right or wrong, then you're going to see, well, then the light must be right. I said, but isn't darkness what encompasses everything? In the beginning, there was light. What was before the beginning? Darkness. Now, people can gauge it by saying, well, there was 1,000 years. Does it matter how many years it was? You know, it's like there was hundreds of generations prior to us. Are we to assume that generation before us was weaker? Or when people say, I value a God, he's the all creator. I said, okay, so let's play the ideal that there is different types of gods, or a God. Did he forget to build the buildings and the bridges and the highways? Or are we assuming that there might be different tiers going on here? Different crowns? You know, what happened if we did meet a species and said, listen, everything that you have on Earth, we gave that to you. But you guys made it, but we gave it to you. We gave you the language so we can communicate with you. We gave you your extra couple of digits on your hands. If people are going to play the idea that we came from a monkey. You know, Jaro, again, I'm talking with I am very opinionated, but I'm also talking from a very possibility point of view. That's why I don't say the word belief, because that's usually coming from a surety. Well, I believe Jesus exists. How can you confirm that? Well, Dominic, I read a book. I said, okay, so we're going to say the book is Jesus? Well, no. They wrote about a guy named Jesus. The only thing I could do is maybe believe that he did or didn't exist. But how does that bring me value if I don't really try to comprehend what was shared? Yeah, but Dominic, they changed the way the book was written. Again, it doesn't matter. Whatever's presented to you, eat it. And then once you eat it, then you can chew on it. That's it. I don't like this. There's your experience. You don't have to do it again. But at least you tried. It's like when watching a little kid saying, oh, I don't like broccoli. And then you ask them, have you ever tried it before? Well, no, my friend did. I said, so how would you know if it's good or bad for you or healthy for you? This is how we form habits, such as my likes and dislikes. And I just gave you an example how it could easily be misled. When somebody, I'm at a kitchen table, or I'm at a dinner table, and all of a sudden somebody tastes something and they say, oh my goodness, this tastes like shit. I stopped the conversation. I said, excuse me, because we're talking freely in the conversation. I know you should be eating in silence, but I'm talking. I said, excuse me, you just said something. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt that you actually tasted shit. What type of shit did you try? Why? Because I'm here to learn. Now, if you turn around and say, well, Dominic, that's just a word that I use. I said, then why would you say that? It'd be different if a person said, Dominic, I really did taste it. So now we can do cross-reference. But when a person says it, they're just abusing a word. It's like if people really listen to the lyrics in most music, you're going to feel the pain of whoever wrote the music. Now, you could talk to the singer. He said, yeah, but Dominic, I don't feel it. Yeah, because you didn't write the music. Or in this case, you didn't write the lyrics. So I would have to talk to the guy that or her that wrote the lyric and say, where were you when you wrote the lyric of slavery or being happy? You know, this is where people, it's a struggle for me, Charo, and I know I use the word frustration, is because how do I explain to other people that I've been outside the cave? When are you going to choose to experience that what you're doing when you're in the cave? Forget about being outside of the cave. Most people won't even acknowledge that they're in a cave. You know, and then they'll think they're clever. Oh, Plato. Who was Plato? Well, who's Socrates? Does it matter? If you can't see it and you value the concept of reality, then why are you talking about it? He's dead. Even if he did live or didn't live, he's dead. So what was taught? What is the ideal of the plate? In this case, forget about Plato. Coming out of the cave. What is the cave? Are we talking about a literal cave that me and you go cave hunting or whatever, and then we see a cave? Or are we talking about the cave that's inside of us? Anyway, and then we turn a flashlight from within. Forget about going outside. You turn a flashlight from within and say, oh, I didn't realize those aren't my thoughts. Oh, wow, I'm not the body. Oh, well,
Oh,
when I'm saying,
are you having the podcast starring Dominic Tersigni as the host tomorrow at, is it 10:30?
I didn't promote it, Jaro. I'll show up tomorrow morning. If people, I don't need to repeat myself to other people. They know about it. And if they feel inspired to wake up
Okay,
in the
I'll show
morning.
up too.
Oh yeah, I'll
Where
turn
the
on.
last one was good. It was on being, no, it was on of this world versus in this world,
Mhm.
something like that. Was it be of this world versus be in the world, or what was it?
Once again, Jaro, this goes back to being happy. That was a moment that was then. I don't think if it's a pod. I'm trying to help. If me and you want to do a podcast where I'll choose to be the person that's going to ask questions. I already kind of know the topic that you shared with me. I've already thought of a whole bunch of questions to ask you. And then when we sit down and do it, I will ask you how you want me to, when you want me to ask the questions and all that. And you can just go on. And that's why I've given you certain information if you already don't have it for yourself. I will show, now if you want to record it, that's up to you, how to be the giver and the receiver. In this case, I'm just going to give questions. You already gave me the topic, and whatever you want to talk about those topics, Jaro, go right ahead. If you want to go on long tangents, go right ahead. I'm only going to ask you when you're ready for me to ask you another question or regurgitate the question or ask the next question. You just tell me and I'll ask the question. I will show you patience. So then if
All
you,
right.
and if you choose to do it with me, that's up to you, but I'll gladly be the giver of the questions, and then I'll just receive whatever comes out of your mouth.
And
First tomorrow, Gerald.
so the in previous Sundays it was something like being in the world versus of the world.
Mhm.
So I came to, or I would summarize it as that when you're being in the world, you're not affected as much than when you're of the world. You kind of belong to the world. And then today we talked a little about being good and versus being evil, or to be or not to be, and then Don talked a little bit about that she's frustrated by situations around her, and she would not let herself be of the world. She wants to be authentic to herself, to keep her values, to not be dragged into doing something she doesn't, that's not her, something like that. So she's trying to be in the world,
Well,
not of the world.
You meant, well, it's a bit of both. I was only sharing be in the world because most people are too busy thinking they're of the world. So now the whole idea I mentioned at the very beginning, Freudian is more about you being led by your desires and your identity, your personas. Jungian is talking about consciousness. So when most people are caught up in themselves, they're following the Freudian way. For them, they'll talk about consciousness, but they're not actually, they're not contributing to it for a growth. So when most people talk about themselves, they want to live in the world, but yet they only want to talk about it when it's advantageous to themselves and non-compassionately think about others. But they'll say it in words only. So whether it's Don or whoever, most of us talk that way. How I'm being led by my career, my kids, my possessions. And when it's not going to their ways, then it goes about, oh, well, the world is not, it's not a good place. I said, because it's affecting you, because you're too busy trying to attach yourself to all your pleasantries, and you're trying to resist, because you can learn more about putting your hands on your stove than talking about putting your hands on the stove, unless you're one of the rare person that doesn't have to experience those things on a physical level. So once again, being of the world is more of a compassionate human being. Being of the world is a very selfish, old version of window.
You meant being in the world.
Yeah.
Being in the world is more compassionate
It is
to
compassion.
yourself and
Being in,
others
being in the world
versus being
Mhm.
of the world is more you're doing things that you have to do to survive. Maybe it's more
well,
lower,
it's like
more gross.
being in the house opposed to being of the house. So when people think they're the vessel, they're being of the vessel opposed to be in the vessel. Same with thoughts. Experience those thoughts. Be those thoughts opposed to of those thoughts. Now I'm playing with words here, but in there's attachments and resistance. People will be attached to something. In this case, they'll be attached of being of the world, but resist being in the world. Because people identify themselves. I'm a doctor. I'm an electrician. I'm a plumber. Now, if I'm asking a person, what's your profession? Sure, I expect to hear them say, I'm a doctor. I don't want to hear about their degrees. I'm not here to say I've saved 10,000 people. No, I ask you a simple question. What's your profession? But other people will gladly tell you those things and say, well, Dominic, I'm an athlete. I said, did I ever talk about sports? People don't know their surroundings. They're regurgitating the same rhetoric over and over again. Well, I'm a parent. Oh, okay. Well, Dominic, you don't understand. I said, well, what part don't I understand? Well, you've never been a parent. I said, well, what about your child? Well, what do you mean? Well, do you think they understand of being a child in that whole dynamic of a parent-child relationship? Well, yeah. I said, am I not still a child? Well, yeah. So then how can you say I don't understand? See, this is where people said, Dom, you're not going to understand how to burn your hand because you've never burnt your hand. I said, not everybody has to experience life through the material only. Now, Joe, this is me talking. What conversation? I know this is going to sound very egotistical. What kind of conversation do you think I would have if I had a table of Jesus, Muhammad, and Buddha in front of me? It would be an equal conversation. Or I would turn around and say, you guys are kids still. Now, that could be being very egotistical. But then again, I've never met these characters. So what was the breadcrumbs left? What was the written work? It kind of like when you listen to a band, Jaro, you're listening to the singer, but he's either one that wrote the song. Most of them don't write their songs when they get to a certain level. So when you hear about Jesus or Muhammad or Buddha, do you honestly think those are their works? You don't know. So what only you can do is take that information that comes across your mind, whether through your eyes or through your ears, and then say to yourself, should I apply discernment on it? Because judgment is, well, then should I open the book or not? Well, I heard the book is evil. I heard the book is good. Where's the discernment in that? Unless you discern the fact that I only lead with good and bad. That's the ego talking when we talk about good and evil.
I was listening to an interview, a podcast on YouTube, and it was wide ranging and deep and covered a lot of subtopics. Maybe it had a theme or it had a title that they tried to get to, but it was on this YouTube channel of this guy that interviews all kinds of people, and sometimes political, but many times philosophical. And so the person that he interviewed sounds like he's a psychology philosopher kind of guy. Maybe he's written books. I don't know too much about him, but it was wide ranging, and
and I'll have to listen to it again, and I'll share it with you because maybe it has some material for when you ask me those questions. And because they talked about, and so one of the questions was, now what about what is the meaning of life? And then he responded, I'll have to listen to it again, but he mentioned, consider the meaning in life. So it's kind of like being of the world versus being in the world. So in the same way, you could apply it to the phrase meaning of life versus meaning in life. So that's something to meditate on, because when you have meaning in your life, then you actually are creating your own meaning. But if there's a meaning of life, then some religion or some philosopher has to come up with the meaning of life for everyone, and there'd be a lot of conflict that way. So maybe there's no such thing as a meaning of life.
Do you know something, Jaro?
Yeah.
If that information brings value to you, the question that you already put to me, Jaro, your inquiry, I already got the 5 questions. So for me, it's not going to deviate, because to me, it was based on your question. It wasn't based on a whole bunch of other people. So now you say a statement, if people just aren't aware of this, we say words like they're deep. If I told you, Jaro, most people are in the shallow end of the pool, drowning in 3 inches of water and calling it deep. You've never been in the presence of something deep. And if you're deep, it's like being in the deep end of the pool. Some deep pools are so deep, Jaro. Are you prepared to jump in there and have the chance that you're never going to come back? Unless you're not willing to do that, then you're basically playing a game with oneself. Now, I don't know what deep is, but I do hear other people. I'm like, that's pretty shallow. Now, you can throw a whole bunch of other angles to it. So now, in this particular case, you've asked a question. I've done my part by receiving the question, in this case, inquiry, and 5 questions came to me. I will present them to you. Now, I've just been giving you other information because I value the concept. If you ever ask me a question, and if I'm not aware of myself, I'm either going to do it organically, or I'm going to bombard myself with 1,000 people's different views, but then make it personal with me. I'm not going to, now, if you want to bring up videos, and because if you're recording and you want other people to see somebody else's interpreting a meaning, for me, I'm going to ask you the question. And if you can make it personal, fine. If you can't, you could share the whatever way you want. But I already know the 5 questions I'm asking you, Jaro. They're pretty straightforward. Based on your inquiry.
Okay. So when can we schedule it?
I'm leaving that up to you, Jaro. I left that up to you, Bello.
How about
Thursday?
How about Thursday? We'll see. Or Wednesday. Thursday could be around 7-ish.
In the morning or in the evening?
Morning in the evening. In the evening? Is that a good time?
Well, only I can say, Jaro.
Do you eat dinner at a certain time?
Once again, Jaro, the only thing I can say to you, I've left it in your court. Only thing I can ask you is if you want to hit it back to me, let me know the night before and I will give you a yes or no. If I give you a yes, it's going to happen. If it's a no, you know, it's a no. So I'm ready at any time, Jaro.
All right.
So if you want to do it tomorrow night, up to you. But I'm going to leave it up to you. Just give me the heads up. You know, don't worry about me. Just present it to me. And if I give you a yes, I'll give you a yes. I told you I'm already ready. I'm leaving up to you because you're the one that has to, you know, I'm just going to be asking questions, Jaro. If it was the other way around, I would reverse it. I said, Jaro, when I'm ready with my presentation, and if you're ready with your questions, I'll let you know. We have to learn how to be team players here, Jaro. So, I'm just the guy that's going to be hosting it, Jaro. But it'll be on your site because you record it. So on my site, Jaro, it's only 40 minutes. And I know you probably like to YouTube all of this.
Okay. We can YouTube it live.
Yep.
And we could call it meaning versus purpose or something like that.
Well, once we do it, Jaro, if you want, I can put it on chat and you can even say it out loud because I'll copy and paste your question. You know, do you remember your question?
Vaguely.
Okay, let me go on to my Facebook and I will pull it up for you, Jaro. See, I'm already doing my thorough part, Jaro. I really hope you're doing your part, Jaro, because, you know, I wouldn't be interviewing people for the sake of just, you know, organically is one thing, and I'm really good at that. But, you know, I would hope that if you're going to be very methodical in what you're doing, it. Okay, give me a second, Jaro. I will cut it and paste it, so at least you know exactly what you said. This is what you said. I didn't say it. So, and I'm not here to say that what you said is right or wrong. I'm just gonna ask questions. So I put it in the chat right now, Bello.
Wow.
There it is. That's exactly what you said.
Let's see if I can find it. Let's see. What is the purpose of life versus, oh, what happened? It's gone. Okay. What is the purpose of life versus what is the meaning of life? Purpose versus meaning. Someone may say, I have a purpose in life, and that is to be happy. But why would being happy be meaningful? How would being happy make your life meaningful? Why would your happiness give meaning to your life?
Mhm.
Oh,
And I've
great
derived,
questions.
well, it is, but I've derived 5 questions from those questions. So now
Wow.
I'll leave that up to you when you either A, you want to address what you just wrote down, or how I've come up with questions for those. And then you can go on, Jaro. This is not me to tell you it's going to be right or wrong, debatable. This is you just sharing how you perceive or receive. Now, whether you do that intuitively, insightfully, mentally, that's up to you.
Mm.
Only I'm going to ask you very politely prior at the beginning. This is the question you asked. Would you like me to give you the questions in orders? Would you like me to regurgitate the question? When you tell me, say, Dominic, can you repeat the question again? So this way you stay on track, if that's even important to you. And then I'll go on when you're ready to say, Dominic, can you give me the second question? Hopefully this might be 2-3 hours. It's up to you, Jaro, how you want to do it.
Okay. That'll be good.
Because
Okay.
I'm not gonna put, Jaro, I'll tell you right now, I am not gonna put my opinions on the questions I give you.
Wow.
This is all about you, Jaro. This is where people don't realize when I go on, I'm sharing my insights. Now, it could be full of crap, but I'm still sharing it.
All right. What time is it?
Time for you to go, my friend. It's 11:25. Get out of here. Go, go.
Oh, I got class at
Go.
11:30. I made it to the temple on time. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. May you have enjoyed this thoroughly.
And same with you, Jaro. Have a beautiful day, my friend.
You too. All right. Let's see. I'm going to. I can't seem to copy. Yeah. Well, I can take a picture of it. Okay, bye everyone. I'm looking forward to Dominic interviewing me over the meaning versus purpose in life. Oh no, or meaning versus purpose, not in life, just meaning versus